Deuteronomy chapter 32. Deuteronomy 32, you see what Moshe said. And you know that Yah told us to take the things that Moshe or Moses told us. He told us to do them. In Malachi chapter 4 verse 4. Malachi 4:4. Yah told us to keep the laws that he gave to Moses, his servant. So everything that Moshe told us is very important. Even our Savior, even our Lord and Savior, Yeshua, also told us that in Matthew chapter 23, verse 1 to 3. Matthew 23, verse 1 to 3. Even Yeshua told us to do all the laws of Moshe that the scribes and the Pharisees was going to teach us. So it's very important. So we have to take everything that Moshe says very seriously, because on the judgment day, we will be judged based on those laws that was given to Moshe, which is the Yah's law. So he said something very interesting in Deuteronomy chapter 32. Deuteronomy chapter 32 from verse 35 or 45. Deuteronomy 32, 45, 4, 5. So in verse 45 in Deuteronomy chapter 32, it says, Moshe finished speaking all these words to all Israel. Verse 46, and he said to them, set your hearts on all the words which I testify among you today, which you shall command your children, to be careful to observe all the words of this law. Verse 47, he said, for it is not a fertile thing for you, because it is your life. And by this word you shall prolong your days in the land which you cross over Jordan to possess. And remember that the whole process of coming out of Egypt, staying in the wilderness for 40 years, and then the promised land, that was a little thing that Yah has put together to give you a picture of what he was going to do in the future, of a bigger picture. So when we were born and we're living in sin, we're born in sin, living in sin, and just doing whatever we want, that's like our Egypt. We were living in bondage. Remember that the Israelite in Egypt was living in bondage. They were in bondage, and Yah delivered them out of bondage. So that bondage, that Egypt has been described as bondage in the scriptures in Exodus. So when we were living, doing all this, living all this kind of lifestyle that we were living in bondage. And that's why you don't want to go back to those ways. That's why you look back right now and you're like, I can't believe I was keeping Christmas. I can't believe I was doing all this stuff. And you genuinely don't want to go back because you now consider it to be a bondage. So when we didn't know what we know right now, we were living in bondage. And then our eyes was opened. We now realize what's going on. So now we're living in the wilderness, because if you look at the whole thing going on right now that you realize that we have to keep the law, and then you realize the stuff that you have to deal with, all the stuff going on, and the fact that it's not an easy journey. It's a journey. From the time that you realize that we have to keep the law, look at all the stuff you have to deal with. Your family members, your job. It's a journey and it's struggle. So it's the same situation when they were traveling in Egypt. In the wilderness. It was a journey. And a lot of people did not make it. A lot of people fell out. A lot of people, basically, that's why Yah decided he was quiet. And he decided that just to test them in Egypt, he tested them. as you can see in Deuteronomy chapter 8. He tested them. He allowed them to be hungry to see how they will react, how they will respond, and they responded badly. With being thirsty and there was no water to drink, according to Exodus chapter 17, they responded very bad. Most of them responded badly. And that was what we studied yesterday, so that we don't repeat the things that they did. They were very ungrateful. They did not appreciate. They were very entitled. They were behaving like spoiled brats. Who have no intention of repentance. They have no intention. And they even said it. The Israelites said it themselves. They told Moses, why did you bring why did you bring us out here to die? You should have left us in Egypt to die. We would have rather died in Egypt than to come and die here in the wilderness. So that's right now, it's kind of like a wilderness. It's not easy. I don't know if it's easy for you, but certainly even just the mockery, just the fact that people mock you or people think you're crazy, that's not easy. That's not an easy thing to deal with. So this is our wilderness. But then we have a promise of the kingdom. We have a promise of the coming kingdom that we're looking forward to. Just like some of them was seriously looking forward to that promised land. They were seriously looking forward to the promised land. Just like we have the hope of that kingdom that is coming. The difference is that everything that happened back then was on a small scale. This is on a big scale right now. And this kingdom is an everlasting. Look at the requirement. The requirements are the same. The requirement to go into the promised land is that they have to keep the law. All those that did not obey the law, that includes Moses. All those that did not do what Yah says, they did not see the promised land. And this should be troubling for us. We should be worried about this. This should be troubling. So for those that say that Yah is merciful, He's kind, He's gracious, yeah, He is. When He's giving you an opportunity to get your acts together, He is. But once His anger begins, then Yah will become the worst thing that will happen to you. You don't want to fall into the hands of Yah. And that's what we're being warned about in Hebrews chapter 10, from verse 26 to verse 31. We're being warned not to backslide and go back to our old ways, because then we will fall back into the wrath of Yah. And when right now it's time for grace. Now it's time, Yah is giving us a chance to get ourselves together and keep the law and do what we need to do. But it's not, that grace period will not always be. Just like during the time of Noah, just like the people of Nineveh, just like people of Sodom and Gomorrah, when His anger begins, those who were thinking like Christians are thinking today are going to realize that they've deceived themselves. So, as we're looking forward to the promised land, which is the kingdom of the Most High, that everlasting kingdom, Yeshua told us that those who will be allowed in there are those that kept the commandment. Just like that was pretty much the requirement of going into the promised land. So among all the originals that came out of Egypt, you now see that majority of them did not make it in. Only their children did. Their children that learned the law and kept the law. They were the one that made it in. But those original people did not. And sadly, that included Moses or Moshe. And you know how that went down. If he was by himself, with Joshua or Joshua, I call him Joshua. If he was by himself with Joshua and Caleb and Aaron, his brother, Moses or Moshe would have made it in. The reason why Moshe did not make it in was because of the rest of the Israelites, because of their behavior. And that's why I always warn you, as you go on this journey, there's going to be a lot of people that will come in and sing hallelujah and do some of the things that we're told to do, but they're not going to do everything. They will only do some. And because they are doing some, you let your guide down by thinking that he is one of us, or that she is one of us, or that he is a brother, or that she is a sister. So, but the behaviors and the things that they're going to do, if you're not careful, will cost you your own salvation. That was exactly what happened to Moshe. So as we are traveling in this journey, you have to be careful those you surround yourself with, those you associate yourself with. Just because somebody is a brother or somebody is a sister doesn't mean you have to be very, very careful. Because if not, you're going to end up like Moshe. If he was by himself, if he was just him and his brother and Joshua and Caleb, they would have made it into the promised land. He ended up failing because of the rest of the Israelites. Because, again, there are people, some people will look at everything and be like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to keep the law. And they will leave. But some people will look at the whole situation and they will like some of the stuff that Yah told us to do. Not all of it. They will like some of them. Or they will like the idea. Oh, wow. We are the Hebrews? That sounds good. I've been wondering where we came from. So for those kind of people, this is all about identity for them. It's all about identity. And that's it. So when you talk about keeping the Sabbath according to the moon, they will not agree. They totally disagree. So when you talk about, so you see them, you see that they are against a lot of stuff in the Bible. But they're so into, and most of the time they will keep talking about identity. They will keep talking about identity stuff. So, but the thing is that those people, if you're not careful, you're not going to be able to identify them. You're going to think, oh, we're all just all brothers and sisters. But the danger with those kind of people is that the stuff that they're going to be doing, if you're not careful, will be a stumbling block for you that will make you to fail. They are going to fail. They're not even going anywhere. They're destined to fail. They're not even like, it's not like they're just there for a different reason, not for the reason why you're there. You are there because you genuinely want to keep the law. You genuinely want to do whatever you can, whatever you need to do to make it into the kingdom. You want to do that. But for people like that, that's not why they are traveling with you. And that was exactly what happened to Moshe. So the behaviors and the things that those people are going to be doing, if you're not careful, will be a trap that will bring you down. They are already at the bottom. They are not growing. They are at the bottom. There are few things that they're doing. Because if they're not doing anything, then you're not going to let them to be around you. But because they're doing few things, that makes you to think, okay, they're brother, okay, they're sister. So, but all the other stuff that they're going to be doing will be a stumbling block, and which will bring you down. And that was a very sad situation with Moshe because of the things that people were doing. And so he has to deal with Yah. But he also was trying to teach the people, trying to communicate with the people. If all the people that he was dealing with was like Joshua and Caleb, Moses would not have a problem. No, he wouldn't. Because he wouldn't say things twice to his brother Aaron. He wouldn't say things twice to Caleb. He wouldn't say things twice to Joshua. And they are not going to, them and their families and their wives are not going to be arguing with Moshe. Why did you bring us out here to die? They're not going to do that, because these men and their wives and their family, Joshua and his wife and his family, Joshua said it. He said, as for, I don't know about you guys, as for me and my family, we will serve the Most High. That's what he said. So they had families, they had wives. So if it was only Aaron and his wife and his children, and Joshua and his wife and his children, and Caleb and if it was only these people, every single one of them would have made it into the promised land. Because these people, when their eyes was open in Egypt, they wanted to get out. They wanted to get out of Egypt. They genuinely wanted to serve Yah. They believed Moshe. They believed the word of Yah. So even if there was no food or water in the wilderness, they will never say to Moshe, why did you bring us out here to die? They would not have that attitude towards Moshe, because they genuinely want to serve Yah. So, and that would have made things easier for Moshe. But because there were people who were there simply because of their identity. That was the only reason why they were there. Simply because they were Hebrews. That's it. They had no interest in serving Yah. So when the going got tough, they began to display their behavior. When Moses tells them what to do, it became a problem. And at some points, they began to challenge Moshe. They began to ask Moshe, are you the only one that can hear from Yah? Which ended up making Yah angry. So that these are things that eventually this man ended up failing. If the only person that should have been the first to step foot into the promised land ended up not making it in because of the other people that was around that was not serious, that was only there because of identity. That's it. They had no interest in keeping the law. So we have to be extremely careful. As we go in this journey, we have to be extremely careful, because you see Yeshua calling Peter of all people, Yeshua calling him devil. Think about that. He wasn't a Gentile. He was an insider. He was an apostle. He was a follower of Yeshua. But at some point, he did something. And Yeshua says to him, calls him a devil, calls him Satan. Because Yeshua wasn't going to take nonsense. Yeshua wasn't going to sit there and let somebody go against the word of Yah, because Peter was trying to go against the word of Yah. And Yeshua rebuked him as Satan. So, and that should tell us a lot. So, in Deuteronomy chapter 32, every parent has a responsibility to teach their children the law. Does it mean that your son or your daughter is going to grow up to become a righteous person? Not really. But you still have to do what you need to do. That's why you see in the scriptures, in the book of Kings, you see some kings that will have children. They will serve Yah, rule according to Yah's law, and then when they die, their children will become wicked and will bring all the pagan gods that their father got rid of. They will bring it back. So we just have to do what we need to do. You have to train them according to the law, and the rest is up to them and Yah, so that you know that you've done your part. So And doing this is basically when you meditate in the law, do it with them, teach them from the law, teach them how to read, how to write from the law, so that you know that you've done your part and you will not be held. This is part of the law that we have to keep. And that's why I told you about people saying that the law, there's 10 commandments. No, there's way more. What we're told here by Moshe in Deuteronomy chapter 32, it says, which you shall command your children to be careful to observe all the words of this law. So it's part of the laws that we're given, part of the commandment that we have to teach our children. So back to Exodus chapter 20 verse 12. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which your Elohim, or which Yah your Elohim is giving you. Like as I said, if you do teach them other things when they were younger, eventually they will be able to implement the part that says that they have to honor their mother and their father. They will implement that. So if you do teach them. But if you don't teach them the rest of the laws when they were younger, you shouldn't expect them to honor you, you know. So these are the commandments. The next one is verse 13, Exodus 20:13. You shall not murder. You shall not murder. You shall not murder. What Yah is saying here is, you see people rising up and killing someone else for no reason. Because there are other instances where Yah told us to kill. There are other places, like Numbers, in the book of Numbers chapter 15. You read about a man that went to gather wood on the Sabbath day. When they caught him, they had no idea what to do with him. They went to Moshe. Moshe had no idea what to do with him. And Moshe basically tried to pray to Yah and communicate with Yah and find out what to do. And Yah told him to kill that man. Why did Yah say to kill him? Because Yah have already told us not to break the Sabbath, that those that break the Sabbath should be put to death. He has already told us that before. And this man went ahead to gather woods on the Sabbath, something that we shouldn't do. And he was put to death. There was no mercy there. There was no grace or mercy or no. So in that case, Yah told us to kill. If somebody kills somebody, they are to be killed. If a man rapes a woman, they are to be killed. If you kidnapped an Israelite and sells them, you are to be killed. There are things that Yah told us that anybody that does that should be killed. You commit adultery, you should be killed. So today, we've pretty much have decided to pick and choose the laws that should be in effect and the ones that shouldn't be in effect. To me, all of them are still in effect. All of them are still in effect. I wouldn't want to kill. I wouldn't want to kill. And you wouldn't want to kill either. But I'm sure that if somebody is pointing a gun at you and they begin to fire and their gun begins to misfire, I'm sure if you happen to have a gun or if you happen to see a gun, you will shoot them. Why? Because you don't want them to kill you. They are already pulling trigger and their gun keeps misfiring. So if someone is standing in front of you and it's clear to you that they are pulling trigger to kill you, If you have a way of killing them to stop them from killing you, you will do that. I don't care how kind and how nice you are. If someone is trying to kill you and you see it and it's happening right there in your face, I don't care who you are, you will never stand there and watch someone kill you when you can stop it. You will do it. So there are circumstances where we will kill. So even with rape, if a man goes and rapes a young girl who is the virgin, Yah says that man is to be killed. Now the Christians have twisted this thing and say that the Bible says that a man that rapes a girl should marry her. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible never said that a man that rapes a girl should marry her. The Bible never said that. It says that if a man rapes a girl, that man is to be killed in Deuteronomy chapter 22. If you rape my daughter, if I have a daughter and you rape my daughter, then you are forcing my hand. You are forcing my hand to shed blood. Because knowing the fact that whoever she lost her virginity to becomes her husband, according to Yah in Deuteronomy 22. No man that fears Yah would marry her when you're still alive. No man that, this is, see, when we talk about the law, we're still like in the beginning stage right now. The deeper you go, the more challenging it becomes in terms of, that's why it's very important to let go the Gentile mindset. It's very important to let go that Gentile mindset, because remember that we're dealing with a God that killed everything in the world and saved Noah and his family. You think there was no babies around back then? You think there was no babies? You think there was no old men and old women in wheelchairs? You think there was no babies in Sodom and Gomorrah? There was no. You see Yah telling the Israelites to go into a place and kill everything that moves. Now this is a God that you're worshiping. A lot of people don't know this. And a lot of people just cannot comprehend this. And this is one of the reasons why people tell you that the Old Testament is done away with. Because when they see some of these places, they just cannot handle it. They can't swallow it because of the Gentile mindset that they have. But that Gentile mindset is not even real. It's actually not real, because that Gentile that have given you the impression that killing is wrong and all that stuff, they go around the world slaughtering everything that moves. Pretty much most of the stuff they've acquired is through bloodshed. Look at what happened to Libya. Look at what happened to Iraq, Japan, Panama, Native Americans. Where should I start? So it's not really real. It's not, or what goes on even today. According to their own record, over 3,000 babies are killed every day in America through abortion. They are babies, because if you kill a pregnant woman, you will be charged with double murder. If you kill a pregnant woman, you will be charged with 2 counts of murder. But if that pregnant woman goes into an office somewhere and tells some man to kill that baby in her stomach, it's called abortion and nothing happens. But if you kill that woman with that baby in their child, you'll be charged with 2. So according to them, that baby is a human being. And according to their own record, over 3,000 abortions are done every day. So these are people that crave violence and bloodshed. And yet they've taught you that, oh, it's not good to kill. Yeah, as long as they're the one doing the killing. So they don't want you to have the power to kill. And that's why you see today, you see what's going on in terms of people being armed and stuff. Every man should be armed. Every man should have a weapon. I'm not going to go into that right now because there are other Bible verses that shows that. But even the Most High, the Bible does, every man should be armed. Every man should, you shouldn't wait for someone to harm you or your family, and then you pick up a phone and call some other people with weapon to come and make report after your family has been killed or raped. Then you call some Gentiles to come and make report, because that's what they're coming to do, to come and make a report of what happened to you. So according to the scriptures, every man should be armed. But you see how the Gentiles have taken that right away from you, and reserved the right. And then they give you the impression that it's not good. It's not good to be armed. As long as they're the one who is armed, it's not good to kill. As long as they're the one doing the killing. So, but that's a totally different thing, that's one of those mindsets we have in Christianity. Even Christ, even Yeshua told us to get a weapon. Even Yeshua told his disciples to go buy some weapons. For what? For protection. But you're not going to hear that Bible verse in the Christian church. It's right there in your Bible. It's there in the gospel. But they're not going to read that in the church. So, there are circumstances where Yah tells us to kill. Like as I said, I hope it doesn't happen, but if I have a daughter and you do rape my daughter, then you're forcing my hand. In one way or the other, I'm going to have to make my daughter free, because I will not intentionally give my daughter to a man for her to be that man's wife, knowing that a man that took her virginity is out there. That will be a sin. That means I will be causing that man to sin, and I'm not going to do that. So according to the Most High, we are not supposed, you cannot rape a woman. You cannot do that, because, especially a virgin, because when you do that, you rob her of her future. If she wants you, she should be able to say yes, and her parents will have to approve it. So that there's a lot of process that they have to go through. Even if she wants you and her parents says no, then you can't marry her. Her parents is the one that will make the final call. In the Hebrew culture, we have something called betrothing and also arranged marriage. Arranged marriage. The Hebrew Ishmaelites are doing that today. But the Hebrew Israelites, of course, majority of them are now mentally Gentiles. So they don't do that anymore. But in the Hebrew culture, a girl or a boy cannot just go off on the street and see someone and start dating someone, and they become boyfriend and girlfriend, and then begin to have sex, and then decide to get married, and then comes back home and talks to mom and dad. It doesn't work like that in the Hebrew culture. So what you see in the Hebrew culture is, Sister Georgia, could you mute yourself, please? So what you see in the Hebrew culture is where if a man sees a woman or a girl that he wants to marry, he has to go back home and tell his parents to go marry that woman for him. Your parents is the one that will get a wife for you. They have to approve it. You can't just go marry whoever you want. Or if you're a girl, you can't just go marry whoever you want. Your parents will have to approve it. Because as soon as you tell them, then they have to look into it. They have to look into that person, look into the family of that person, look into the whole situation and see if that person is good for you. Because as a young man, when you're looking at a young woman, you're having a different thought. You're thinking about now. You're thinking about her body. You're thinking about you have a lot of fantasies. how you both are going to become Romeo and Juliet, how you're going to have beautiful kids and everything will be perfect and wonderful and you will never have any problem and you love each other so much. These are things that you're thinking about. But your parents are not going to look at it like that. When you look at a young girl that you want to marry, and your parents are looking at that same young girl, what you see is not what they see. When they are looking at that young girl or that, when they're looking at that young girl, they are seeing something different. They are thinking long term. They are looking at her behavior. They are asking her questions. They are seeing how she responds to the question. They are observing. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of observation that they're doing. They're asking about the parents. They're trying to find out, does the parents have history of violence? Does the parents have history of stealing? Does the parents have history of mental illness? These are things that matters. These are stuff that boys don't care about and girls don't care about. But these are stuff that do have a very big implications in the future. But the young person is thinking about now. When can we get married? Can we just do it already? I want to have sex already. I want to do it. When can we do this already? But your parents doesn't. So that's why in the Hebrew culture, everything is left for the parents to. So when you find someone, you have to come and let your parents know. And then they investigate. If they say yes, then you go. If they say no, you can't marry that person. That person cannot marry you. Your parents have to approve it. If your parents are people that keeps the law, then it's better. It's even good. If you have a parents that don't keep the law, then you're screwed. Because what your parents that keeps the law will see on that person is not what your parents who don't keep the law will see. You see, if, say for example, let's say we have Sarah. Let's say we have Sarah. And Sarah is a young girl. And there's a man that wants to marry Sarah. And Sarah's parents are keeping the law. When they look at that man, when they evaluate and investigate that man, they are trying to see, is he righteous? Is he keeping Yah's law? Is he honestly and genuinely keeping Yah's law? So they are looking at certain things. They don't care much about money and all that stuff. They're looking at, okay, is he keeping Yah's law? All right, does he have a skill? In the Hebrew culture, we have skills. We don't go to and get university degrees. That's nonsense. It means nothing. You have to have skill. Maybe a carpentry, plumbing, electrician, something that wherever you go in the world, you will be able to survive. Farming. The Hebrew people have skill. We have skills. So wherever you go, you just set yourself up and you'll be able to survive. You can't survive anywhere you go with your university degree. Even those that got their university degree in America, a lot of them can barely find jobs. People go to university, when they're done, they go back and start flipping burger at McDonald's because they can't find work. That's one of those foolish things that comes from the Gentiles, the idea of getting a university degree. You have to have a skill. And when you have the university degrees, you work for people. It sets you up to be a slave. It sets you up to be nothing less than a slave. That's what it sets you up to be. You are nothing but a slave, because it doesn't set you up to there we go. When you go get this thing, this is a university degree right here. This is a bachelor's degree. When you get this crap, this is nonsense. This sets you up to be a slave. Because this means nothing if you don't work for anybody. I mean, if you get a degree, you have to actually go work for someone for that to be anything. The problem is that they're not going to let you keep the Sabbath, the true biblical Sabbath. They may give you Saturdays off, but they will not let you keep the Sabbath, the true biblical Sabbath. They may not let you have your beard. They will tell you when to come in. When the 7th month comes around, they may not allow you to get those days off to keep all those feast days that falls on the 7th month. So this is truly something from Satan. The worldly education system. But wise people will let their children get skill. Go learn plumbing, learn electrician, carpentry, welding, whatever, so that you can have a skill. So when a Hebrew parent who keeps the law is looking at a man that wants to marry their daughter, what they are going to observe and what they're going to expect is not something that a lawless parents who don't keep the law will want. When a parent that keeps the law is looking at when they're looking at a man that wants to marry their daughter, they're thinking of all this stuff that I mentioned. Is he righteous? Is this man, does he really fear Yah? Does this man truly, genuinely fear Yah? So they're looking at that, and if they're able to get satisfied on that area, then they begin to look at, okay, does he have a skill? Can he actually provide for our daughter? Or is he going to, is this thing going to be 50-50? Is he going to make our daughter to go get a job? Will our daughter have to work before they can survive? Because if that's how this is going to go, if our daughter is going to have to go get a job before two of them can survive, then what happens if something happens to him? Our daughter is going to have to carry that burden of carrying the whole family. See, the worldly people don't think like that. Those that are following the Gentiles don't think like that. So, this is the stuff that a righteous family is going to be looking at as they investigate. Your daughter is sitting there thinking, oh, he's so handsome. He's so this. That's not what you're thinking. Because you know that eventually with all his handsomeness, he's going to have wrinkles in his face. With all her beauty, eventually she's going to have wrinkles in her face. So worldly beauty is nothing. Only foolish people are focusing on stuff like that. Wise people are looking beyond today, tomorrow. So these are stuff that righteous family or parents are looking at. Is he going to be able to, how does he think? Is he going to be able to, have a skill and be able to provide for our daughter and be able to, does he have a mindset to actually prepare and leave stuff behind for our daughter and her children? Is he thinking of renting instead of getting his own house or building his own house? So the righteous parents are thinking differently. But the very first thing they think about is the law. The law. And then because if the righteous parents knows that if this man doesn't fear Yah, then they will not be able to treat our daughter. They will not be able to treat our daughter the way the scripture says that they should. They know that. If we have worked hard to train our daughter according to the scriptures, according to Titus chapter 2, we've trained our daughter according to Titus chapter 2, how to be a homemaker, how to love her husband, how to be submissive to her husband, how to do all these things. And we train her according to Titus chapter 2, according to Proverbs 31. Then our daughter becomes like a treasure, a gift, a treasure. So you see why that parents would want to investigate whoever is going to get this treasure. Because other than that, you're going to end up like what Yeshua said. You're going to take something valuable and give it to a dog. And that dog will not know the value. They will just mess it up because they don't know the value. So these are stuff that a Hebrew parents will investigate. And that's why Yah wants it that way. That is the reason why the Most High wants it that way. People don't get married because they want to. Their parents have to approve it. They have to. In the other side, when you have a lawless parent who don't keep the law, they are looking at things differently. If they have a daughter and their daughter is Sarah, and a man wants to marry Sarah, they are looking, does he have a degree? Does he have a house, a degree? These are the very first thing they will begin to look at. How much does he make? So, but what they will not think about is, where is the source of that income? Is he working for someone? Is that how he's making that money? They don't think about stuff like that. It's all about now. Okay, how many degrees does he have? Where does he work? Does he have a good job? They don't think, it never occurs to them that even if your daughter or your son-in-law or to-be is working at Boeing or whatever company, it doesn't occur to them that company may end up decide to lay people off. That company can file for bankruptcy and all of a sudden your son-in-law is jobless and your daughter is left carrying the family. You see, oh my goodness, not following the law is foolishness. Because when you follow the law, there's a different kind of wisdom that you have. So those who don't follow the law are thinking about, it's all about now, materialism right now. So if he has this degree, that degree, which automatically means slavery, they don't care. So he has all this degree and he has this job. He's showing up with nice looking car. That's all they need to know. That's all they want. As long as he has this good job, that's all they need to know. But for a Hebrew family, we think differently. Our standard is different. Like as I said, you're thinking, does he have a skill? Is he in a, so we think very much differently. And of course, our thinking also is also like what you see in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6 to 10. So our understanding and standard of living is different. With our son-in-law, if there's a man that works for a company and makes 500,000 a year and lives in an apartment or lives in a big house, but he's paying mortgage and paying car note and working for a company, and then you have another man that is an electrician or a plumber or a welder that has his own little business where he employed one or two people, but he owns the plumbing company, he owns the welding company, and it's only like one shop, but he owns it, and he's able to build a little house somewhere that he actually built. When you have a Hebrew family and a worldly family, and you have them to choose, a Hebrew family will most likely choose that man that has a skill, has his own little business, makes maybe 50,000 a year, but he owns his business and he owns his house, and he's keeping the law. A worldly people will choose that man that lives in a mansion, has a bunch of degrees and works for somebody and pays mortgage in that mansion and pays car note. those things can easily be lost. As soon as he loses that job, the house is going, the car is going. All of a sudden, you're stuck with your daughter carrying that man and carrying the family. But the man that have a skill and owns his little business and makes $50,000 a year, he's not going to lose his job because he owns the job. He owns the business. He's not going to lose his house because he built the house. So, like as I said yesterday, our standard of living, or day before yesterday, our standard of living is different. The biblical standard of living is different from the worldly standard of living. People are thinking about now. What can I get now? Now. It's all about now. But we think differently. So in the Hebrew culture, we have something called arranged marriage. That's why I also said yesterday, you have to truly decide. When I keep saying this thing, but I hope it doesn't go from one ear and go out from the other. You have to decide whose approval you want. If you choose to do what the Most High said, people are not going to be happy with you. If you choose for people to be happy with you, to approve, and you want to, you don't want to look weird or look strange by the way you dress and stuff, then the Most High, if you don't want to, then the Most High will not be happy with you. So we have to choose. So talk about arranged marriage today. People will think you're crazy. What? Man, leave that boy or that girl to decide who they want to marry. No, we don't do that in the Hebrew culture. That's not biblical. Let's go to Judges chapter 14. Judges chapter 14. So in Judges chapter 14, you're going to see an example of what I'm talking about. Judges chapter 14. Judges 14. So in Judges 14, you see, it says from verse 1, now Samson went down to Timnah and saw a girl. It's actually a girl. It's not a woman because she was still a virgin. So she wasn't a woman. She has to lose her virginity to be a woman. So this is a very poor translation. But it was a deliberate poor translation, which I'm not going to get into why they did this. Some of you may know why they did this if you've been here long enough. We've studied why they like to use, when the Bible is describing a girl, it's clearly that it's describing a girl, the Bible translators will use a woman. It was a deliberate, but I'm not going to get into why they did it. Some of you may know already. Maybe next time we'll do that. So what the person that Samson saw was a girl. It was a girl. She was a virgin. So it says in Judges chapter 14 verse 1. Now Samson went down to Timnah and saw a girl in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Verse 2. So he went up and told his father and mother, saying, I have seen a girl in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistine. Now therefore go get her for me as a wife. Get her for me as a wife. Why couldn't he go do it for himself? Here you have this young man that sees this girl. Why didn't he go do it for himself? He has to go back home and tell his parents to go get her for him as a wife. Because if he goes to the parents, they will be like, go, why are you here? Go call your parents. He knows that. And even till this day, if you go to West Africa, where a lot of the Hebrews are today, if you want to marry a Hebrew girl in West Africa today, you cannot go by yourself. When you go there and you be like, you want to marry your daughter, they'll be like, okay, go call your parents. We can't talk to you. We cannot discuss that with you. We have to talk to your parents. Even till this day, it happens among the Igbos or the Hebrews in West Africa today. You can't go by yourself. They won't even if you go and you're like, I want to marry your daughter, they'll be like, okay, welcome. But we need to talk to your parents. We need to see your parents. Because they're not going to talk to you. There's nothing to really discuss much with you. They want to talk to your parents. You have to come with your parents. I'm telling you, even till today, go study it about the Igbos in West Africa today. If you go over there and want to marry, you have to go with your parents. So those people in West Africa, that's where majority of the so-called African Americans that was taken from West Africa, that's where they were taken from the Igbos or the Hebrews in West Africa. They were taken as slaves and was taken to America. So for those who are left over there in West Africa today, a lot of the stuff they do is actually found in the Bible. A lot of their culture is found in the Bible. So, and one of those things is getting married. If you literally go there and you want to marry a girl and you go and you're like, you go to the family and you're like, I want to marry her, the first thing they will ask you is, they'll be like, okay, well, we need to see your parents. If you don't have a parents, you have to go get your mother's sister and your father's brother. But they need to see people that represent you. You can't just be, so even till this day, I'm telling you, till today, that's how it works. So that's what you see here in Judges chapter 14. So he sees the girl, he goes back home and tells his parents, I want to marry her. And then the father says in verse 3, then his father and mother said to him, is there no woman among the daughters of your brethren, or no girl among the daughters of your brethren, or among all my people, that you must go and get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said to his father, get her for me, for she pleases me well. But his father and mother did not know that it was Yah, that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. For at that time, the Philistines had dominion over Israel. So this is one of those situations that we have here, like with the Assyrians, then the Philistines and the Babylonians and the Greeks, the Romans, and then the Europeans. It's one of those situations where Israel becomes wicked and Yah raises up a Gentile nation to oppress them, to punish them. It's one of those situations. And like the Babylonians, you see what he did to the Babylonians, the Assyrians. So that was kind of like what was going on here. Yah typically raises up a Gentile nation to do this. And that's why his father was telling him, does it mean that there's no girl among your people, that you have to go marry the uncircumcised Philistines? So it's pretty much, when you look at this Bible, don't look at it the way people are looking at it. People are looking at it like it's an old book, a KE book, that most of the stuff that happened there happened in the past and they can never happen again. No, you are living at a period of time right now, just like the Israelites lived under the Assyrians, just like they lived during the Babylonians, during the Greeks. It's the same thing. Nothing has changed. The same thing. A lot of the times, the Israelites typically have no idea what's going on and who they are, because they usually are born into the system that they're living in. So that's kind of like what we have going on today. So, but you can see the response of the family. But this is just an example of someone seeing a girl and going back to the family and saying, go marry her for me, because he knows that if he wants to go do it himself, they'll pretty much kick him out. They will not tolerate him. They'll be like, go call your mom and your dad. Another example that you're familiar with is Genesis 24. Read the whole chapter of Genesis 24 with Isaac and Abraham. You see Abraham deciding to send his servant, the main guy or among his servant, to go find a wife for Isaac. He never like called Isaac to get his opinion. All right, what kind of girl do you want? Big, fat or thin, or short or tall, light-skinned, dark-skinned? What kind of girl do you want? He never got that opinion from Isaac. He simply sent his servant to go find a wife for Isaac. He left all the discretion and all the decision for the servant. The servant is going to go find someone and bring that person to Isaac. And when you read Genesis 24, you see how that all went down. The servant went, found someone through the will of Yah, through the help of Yah. He found a girl. Everything worked out. He brought that girl to Isaac. Isaac never said, I don't know, she's too tall or she's too short, she's too thin, she's too fat or whatever. Isaac never said any of that. She simply took her, knew her, because she was a virgin, which is the way it was supposed to be, or it's supposed to be. So she simply took her, knew her, that was it. There was no elaborate wedding. There was no tuxedo and wedding gown and wedding reception, and there was none of that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do all that. You can call a few friends if you want to. You don't have to. When it comes to the biblical marriage, you don't have to do that. Losing of that virginity, when that blood comes out, it seals the covenant. That's the covenant of the marriage. That's it. It's between you and the Most High, between two of you and the Most High. If you choose that you don't want to call people, that's your choice. Like you can see with Isaac, there was nothing like, okay, so hold on. Let's since we arrived, let's arrange. Let's set the date and call the people. I mean, there were people around. The servant was there. They simply brought Rebecca, hand her over to Isaac. That's it. He went and consummated the marriage with her. And that was it. They became husband and wife. So you don't have to do elaborate wedding. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to go to the court. Actually, you shouldn't go to the court to get a license. Actually, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't go to the court system to get a license. Don't do it. You should not do it. You should, marriage, whether for your son or for your daughter, never advise them to do that. We don't do that. It should be biblical. So the marriage license is, go study the history. I'm not going to go into the history, but go study the history of marriage license. And if you realize how it got started, you wouldn't want to get into it. There's a reason why they began to issue marriage license. There was a reason why they started doing it, because they wanted to keep track of who is marrying who. But then, like stuff that comes from Satan, they decided to add a little bit of goodies by then letting you know that, by then giving you the impression that if you get a marriage license, then you get protected. So you get to keep the property, or you get to have legal rights. You get some money during the tax seasons. These are just goodies that they added to get you, to make you to want to get that marriage license. But the original reason why they began to issue marriage license, that the Gentiles begin to issue marriage license, has nothing to do with those reasons that they tell you right now, which is to get some legal protection, to get tax benefits. You're dealing with Satan. Of course, he's not going to tell you the main reason, just like he didn't tell Eve the main reason. He never told Eve the consequences. He simply told Eve about the little goodies that she will get, how she's going to, like, her eyes will open, and, you know, he romanticized the whole thing, and she got hooked. That's what Satan does. He will never tell you the whole story, give you the whole details. He was only going to tell you what you want to hear, and then you will make the final decision based on the stuff. You become selfish. So if you find out the history of marriage license, initially they didn't give a damn about marriage license, But at some point, they decided to implement it because they want to know who is marrying who. They want to keep a grip on that. But then they throw in some little goodies to make you to want to go get it. So as Hebrew people, as biblical people, as people that want to follow the scriptures, you should not have anything to do with going to the court to go get a marriage license. You shouldn't do that. Because the Most High have told you it's actually a sin to do that. Going to get a marriage license will be a sin. Why? Because Yah told you not to learn the ways of the Gentiles. Again, study the history of marriage license and see where it came from. Yah have told us not to learn the ways of the Gentiles. So that's the reason why we don't do that. We have to do it biblically. And as you can see in Genesis 24, there was no ceremony there. Now, you can do a ceremony if you want to. Yeshua went to a wedding ceremony in John. He went to a wedding ceremony. He sat down. There was eating and drinking and drinking of wine, lots of wine. People were getting drunk and drinking wine and stuff. You can organize a wedding if you want to, but you don't have to. You don't have to. It can just be between the two people, maybe between the people and their moms and their dads, and yeah, that's it. For those that want to organize wedding, you can also do that. It's not a sin. Like you see, Yeshua went to a wedding and turned water into. If we shouldn't do wedding, like in a big way, then Yeshua would not sit there and turn water into wine, approving that wedding. No, he went to the wedding because you can have a wedding if you want to. You also don't have to have a wedding if you don't want to. Yah don't give a damn about that church wedding. He doesn't care about that. That's just your little ceremony that you're doing. But today, that's the main thing that people do, and they call it wedding. No, wedding is when a man and a woman has sex and she loses her virginity. That's wedding according to Yah. And that's what you see in Genesis 24. Also, when you read the book of Tobit. When you read the book of Tobit, look at how they got married. You know? So, these are just options. These are just stuff for you to know. And like, again, Genesis 24 is a typical example of arranged marriage. Abraham arranged the whole thing and let his servant go figure it out, find someone and bring that person, because he didn't want Isaac to marry girls from where they were living at that time. He wanted Isaac to marry a Hebrew girl. And that was why he had to send his servant to go back among the Hebrews and go find a girl for his wife, for his son. So that was an arranged marriage. But if you want to do that today, your family members will be the first people to condemn you and mock you and accuse you of oppressing your children, accuse you of oppressing. Yeah, that's the word that they will use. Oppressing your children, not allowing your children to have their freedom. Your own family members, your brothers and your sisters will be the ones that will oppose you and challenge you for doing arranged marriage. So you're going to have to choose. Do you let your children go out there and find someone and decide on who to marry, when you do understand that all their decisions right now are going to be based on flesh, thinking about how handsome he is, how tall he is, how beautiful she is, and all that, and her body. These are stuff that kids think about, and that's why the Most High doesn't want them to be making that kind of decision, because when they are thinking about those kind of less important stuff, they're about to get into a situation where something that will make or break their life. They're about to get into a relationship that they have to be in for the rest of their life. It's a very serious decision that they're going to be in. So it's not something that you should let, because we don't do divorce. Unless if you want to do it the worldly way. So because the Most High hates divorce, and once that marriage is done, it's done. Yah arrange it in a way that a very thorough investigation has to be done to make sure, because this is a lifetime thing. It's a lifetime thing. So that's why Yah had the parents get involved to make sure that this is right for everyone. Because once it's done, it's done. You can't go back. You can't change it once it's done. Once that virginity has been broken, that's it. That's it. You can't change your mind. You can't, if you decide to leave, you're going to have to remain by yourself for the woman. So this is actually the women should be more careful about this. Because like it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, if you do choose to leave, you can leave. But if you go and be with another man, that's a sin right there. Now, mind you that this isn't coming from the Torah. This is coming from Romans chapter 7, verse 1 to 3, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 10 and 11, verse 39. That's where this thing is coming from. So you have to understand it's a very serious situation that the Hebrews typically do a lot of investigation, because once it's done, it's done. You can't back out. And for the women, if you want to back out, you can. If you say that you don't want to do it anymore, but the thing is you have to remain single. You can't be with another man. As long as the man that took your virginity is alive, you're stuck. You're screwed. That's why it has to, a very thorough investigation is usually done in the beginning. In the Hebrew culture back in West Africa right now, among the Hebrews in West Africa, over there right now, typically, if your son wants to marry a girl, and you want to marry a girl, and you have to go talk to the parents, and you go talk to the parents, what they will tell you is, they'll be like, okay. They will tell you to come back. Sometimes they may say, come back in 2 weeks, or come back in 1 month. And of course, you're going to come back with your parents. If you don't have a parents, you have to come back with those that represents your parents, either your father's brother and your mom's sister. You have to come back with elders. They will not deal with you if you don't come back with your parents. So, but they will tell you to come back. But as soon as you leave, they will begin investigation. My little brother wants to get married. They have to go to the area, to the neighborhood where that girl is from, to investigate about the family, how they behave, investigate. He has to go do that. So they have to go do that. They have to go do that. But while he's doing that, the girl's family will also send some people to go investigate him, investigate his family, and find out who are they. How do they behave? What is their history? Do they have a history of worshiping idol? Do they have a history of mental illness? Do they have a history of, these are stuff that they have to investigate. That's why they tell you to go and come back. Then they will begin investigation. So these investigations are the stuff that they will do. What I'm telling you is not some historic stuff. This is what goes on in West Africa among the Hebrews over there right now. So by the time you come back, they've finally done their investigation. By the time you then come back, that's when they will tell you either yes or no. Their yes or no will not be based on what your daughter says. Their yes or no will be based on their investigation. Because they know that their daughter is thinking about how handsome you are, how much money you have, how your marriage is going to become Romeo and Juliet, how the first sex is going to be great. These are the things that she's thinking about. And they will not make the decision based on her thought. They don't give a damn what she thinks that much. They're looking at is this man going to be a violent man? Do they have a history of mental illness, which may end up affecting our future grandchildren that will come from them? These are stuff that they're investigating. So when you come back, then they will tell you, okay, yes. Or they will say, sorry, no. Do you think that the Gentiles operates this way? No. It's typically the girl will somewhere, maybe in college, run into some guy. They start having sex. When they're done having sex, then they decide that they want to get married. Then she goes and tell mom, or he goes and tell mom, and then they'll be happy. Oh, my daughter is getting married or whatever. And then they put a marriage date, and then you don't see them doing this investigation. You don't see them looking into things like this. If they do an investigation, it's typically, how much does he make? Is he educated? That's what they investigate. Is he educated? And if he has a degree and has a job, okay, that's good enough. But they don't, it doesn't matter where he's making his money in terms of the fact that he's working for someone, which is very, very unstable. So if he loses his job, your daughter is going to end up carrying the family, which will eventually cause the marriage to collapse. See why the Most High told us not to learn the ways of the Gentiles? So this is what happens. This is the reason why you see even among the so-called Muslims today, I call them the Hebrew Ishmaelites. Mind you that these people came from Abraham. Now, don't mind these Hebrews that will speak against the Muslims, not realizing what they're talking about. Abraham had Ishmael as the first son. You might want to read the book of Jubilees. Ishmael had 12 sons. Most of his sons are in the Middle East today. Dubai, UEA. All these nations, big and small in the Middle East. But look at the wealth over there. Look at the enormous wealth over there. That is according to Yah's word, because Yah said that he was going to bless Ishmael's 12 sons. Yah said that he would bless them. Dubai, UEA, all these nations. Yah said that he would bless them, and he did. So they came from Ishmael, and Yah himself said that he will bless them. How do you go against that? Only an ignorant person who don't know what the Bible says will go against that. Even when their mother, even when Hagar, whatever her name is, even when she wanted to flee from Abraham's house, who told her to go back? Somebody told her to go back. Who did that? Yeah. When there was some situation going on between her and Sarah, and she decided to run away, Yah sent an angel and told her to go back, that she's going to have a son, and that Yah will bless that son, who was Ishmael. That's how you get these people in the Middle East today. And oftentimes you're not going to see this from CNN or Fox News, because there's a lot of wealth over there. Go study about United Arab Emirates, Dubai, all these nations, all the little nations. These are the sons of Ishmael. But it's like, it's crazy the amount of wealth that they have over there, the kind of lifestyle that they live over there. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. But that's what Yah said he was going to do for them. And actually today, they actually observe some of the things that the Yah said more than the Hebrews. Look at their dressing. Look at the dressing of their women. You think that that's an Islamic dressing? No. When you see these Muslim women, the way they dress, the way they cover themselves, look at Genesis 24. Look at Numbers chapter 5. This is how the Hebrew women dressed. And to prove that to you, look at the Catholic nuns. Where do you think that comes from? Why do you think the Catholic nuns dress the way they dress? Because they understood how women dressed in the Bible. I'm not talking about all regular Catholic women. I'm talking about the nuns. Those Catholic sisters, the nuns. Look at how they dress. Do you see the similarity between that and the Muslim dressing? Now, why will there be that kind of coincidence? Pull up a picture of a Catholic nun and pull up a picture of a Muslim woman. Look at the similarity between their dressing. Now go pull up a picture of the so-called Mary, the mother of Yeshua. Look at those three pictures. Picture of a Mary. I don't care whatever picture you want to pull up of Mary. Any picture that you see that depicts Mary, that's not really her picture. That is not her picture. But any picture that depicts Mary, look at the kind of head covering that she has. And then look at how the similarity between that so-called Mary's picture and the Muslim, the way they dress, and then the Catholic nuns. And then you go to the Bible, like Genesis 24 that I was talking about, like Numbers chapter 5 verse 18, and many other places. That's Hebrew style of dressing. I want to take you back to the Catholic priest. Look at the Catholic priest, the way they dress. They wear a white robe. If I stand up right now, what I'm wearing here, look at this. I don't know if you can see it, but look at the neck. Look at the neck of what I'm wearing. See how the neck is? This is a white robe. This is what the Catholic priests are wearing. The Catholic priest wears stuff like this. So when you see a Catholic priest, look at the neck of what they're wearing. Now, this was not made for the Catholic priest. This is a Hebrew style of dressing, according to the Bible. But you see the similarity. So, and then they put that white thing. But if you look at the neck, it's a robe. Now, am I saying this to justify Catholics? Oh, hell no. Hell no. Because it's a satanic religion, which you can actually see from Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13, you're going to see the Catholic Church. It talks about, in Revelation 13, it talks about a lamb that comes up, that speaks like a dragon, but looks like a lamb. A beast that comes out into the world. That beast looks like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon. That was the Catholic Church. Who is the lamb? Yeshua. So this beast comes out looking like a lamb, trying to present themselves and look like Yeshua. But when they speak like a dragon. Who is the dragon? Satan. Revelation chapter 12 verse 9. So they try to look like, that's why they talk church. They present themselves as the church. They give you the impression that they're from God. They carry the Bible. That's why you see the Catholic nuns dress the way they dress, to fool you. They dress like the Hebrew women. The true Hebrew women, the way they dress. Forget about the way that people that claim to be Hebrew dress today. All these women that claim to be Hebrew, they're not dressing like Hebrew women. They're not. The Muslim women are the ones that dress like Hebrew women. I'm talking about the Hebrew women you read about in the Bible. The way they actually dressed, the Muslim women are the ones dressing like that, and the Catholic nuns. That's just the truth. If you actually study it. So this religion comes up. The book of Revelation tells you that what was going to happen. So they look like a lamb, which is Yeshua, but they speak like a dragon, which is Satan. How did the dragon speak? The dragon said that we don't have to keep the law. The dragon is constant. That's what he told Eve in the garden. Revelation chapter 12 verse 9. The dragon that deceived the whole world, which is Satan. Look at what he told Eve and Eve in the garden. Oh, you don't have to, So he's constantly speaking against the law. So that's why it tells you that that beast will come up and that beast will look like a lamb. That's why you see their appearance. They dress very holy. That's why they decided to dress like Hebrews. Their so-called Catholic priests are dressing like Hebrew men, except that they don't have a beard. Their women are dressing like Hebrew women. But when they speak, they say that we don't have to keep the law. They're speaking like the dragon, which is Satan. So I'm not pointing out their clothing to justify them. No, they're from Satan. And that's where the rest of the Christian church came from. The Protestants, the Baptists, the Seventh-day Adventists, all these other church, even a lot of the Hebrew Israelite camps are following Christianity because they worship on Saturday. They worship on Saturday. They are following Christianity. So that's what happened about dressing. Those you see in the Middle East today, that's why you see their girls get married at a very young age. That's one of the things that will also be hard for people to swallow. I'm not going to go into that. If you've been here for a while, you know we've gone through that for some time and you understand how that. So you typically in the Bible, girls usually get married as soon as they see their first period. We went through that. We studied it from over here. I'm not going to go into that right now. We studied it and you saw it. That's what Paul was telling you in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 36. If she has passed the flower of her age, let them marry. That flower of her age is her first period. I demonstrated that over here. We went through Leviticus chapter 15 and I showed you some videos how flower works. I showed you stuff. So for those of you that saw that, you saw it. There was also somebody that used to join us. After we went through that study, she just could not stomach it. She couldn't accept the idea that a 12-year-old girl should get married. And she stopped joining, which was wonderful, which was very beautiful. I like that. And I always advise you guys, if we study something here that you don't like, please leave. If you don't like it, just go. So in that way, you save me problems, and you don't stay here and start causing confusion and the space. I need the space. I need the space. Skype only allows us to have 25 people. So I need the space. So this person, even after we went through the Bible and we saw everything from the Bible and it was clear, I wasn't telling you. I was showing you. We saw it. We understood. We went back to the Torah and we saw what Paul was talking about. So typically in the Bible, like Mary gave birth to Yeshua around the age of 13, 14. We went through different places in the Bible and you saw it. These girls typically, the women in the Bible typically got married as soon as they see their period. That was the age. But there was a sister here that just could not stomach that. She just could not accept it. And she didn't tell me why, but she just simply but I know that was the reason why, because she made a comment right before she left. So, but again, you have to choose whose approval you want. If you decide to follow the Bible, I'm telling you, there's going to be so much conflict between you and your brothers, your blood brothers and your blood sisters. Like Yeshua says in Matthew chapter 10, they are the ones that will fight you. They are the ones, possibly they may even call the cops to take your kids away from you because they will feel that you're endangering your children by some book that you have no idea who wrote. So one of your biggest challenge will actually be your family members. That was exactly what Yeshua is telling you in Matthew chapter 10. That your greatest enemies will be those in your own household. Which is so brilliant because it's so convenient because they are the ones closest to you. If a friend start giving you hard time that you're keeping the law, you can always block them or something. But it's so hard to get rid of your family members. So it's no coincidence that they are the ones that Satan is going to use to come against you. So we have a very, very big choice to make of whose approval we want. The more you stay on this group, the more you stay on here, the more you're going to come across things. And like I always tell you guys, you are going to, there's going to be some things that we will study here that will challenge you. There are things that you're going to come across in the Bible that would really, really challenge you, that will make you think, okay, I know that this is going to be tough, but this is way too much. This is, okay, this is, like, you're going to start thinking that, okay, there will be that moment and you're going to have to make a choice. So, because the world is so screwed up right now, the world is so upside down, that right is absolutely wrong. And if you open your mouth and say, you know what, this is not right, people are looking at you like you're crazy. And wrong is now right. And those who do wrong are celebrated, and they are handed an award to. They're given an award and they're celebrated. The world is upside down, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse every day. Every day it's going to get worse. Every day for lawkeepers are going to become weirder and weirder and weirder and weirder every day. And that's a choice you're going to have to make. For me, I've looked at the whole situation and I've decided, you know what? I'm crazy. I am crazy. Like, I've pretty much, my mindset right now is that, okay, like, whatever it is that people are going to consider me that I am, whatever that thing is, like, I'm already at peace. So I'm not gonna, if you call me names and say I'm crazy, I'm in a cult, I'm taking the Bible seriously, it's not gonna mean anything to me, because I know that it's gonna happen and I'm prepared. And so, but if you want to have one foot in the world and have one foot in keeping the law, you can't do it. You're going to think you can do it, but you can't. I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to do it. You cannot please here and please the people. And most people in the world right now, most people in the world, even those that are like around you, those that may even be in the same building with you right now, most people in the world right now they hate Yah's law. They hate Yah's law. They don't want to have anything to do with his law. And there is already a problem between you and those people. And you don't even know it. Just the fact that you want to keep the law is already a problem right there. So these are things that that we have to, my advice for people, the advice that I give people is, if you want to please Yah, then don't even bother. Don't even bother explaining to people what you're doing. Don't even bother. If I have a child right now and it's time for her to get married, most of my family members will not even know. There's no point. There's no point. I mean, because they're going to start arguing. We're going to start arguing about, no, there's no point. There's no point of me telling them what I'm doing. They will not understand. They would not want to understand. They're going to think that I'm crazy. They will think I've lost my mind. So why would you even want to, like, discuss it with them in the first place? I'm going to go ahead and do what I need to do. If I want to get married today, it's going to be a very small thing. It's between me and my Yah, and, you know, it's so that will make it easier for you. But if you want to explain to them what you're doing, and you want to explain to your brother or your sister who are not keeping the law, you want to explain to them why you are pulling your children out of the school system, why your 13 years or 14 years old daughter is getting married, why you decided that your 13 years old son or your 13 or 14 years old son is going to go learn a trade. Why you, if you try to explain this thing, it's not going to go well. And you may end up putting yourself in a situation that they will actually pick up a phone and call the Gentiles to take those children away from you, because they will say that you've lost your mind. So why would you even want to discuss it with them in the first place? Unless they decide to keep Yah's law, they will not understand what you're talking about. They would not, and they wouldn't want to. They will always think that you're crazy. And the more you try to explain, the crazier you sound. That's why I say don't even bother. Go ahead and do what you need to do. And if your goal is to please Yah, and do his will, then you shouldn't give a damn what people think. Because right now, the world is so lawless that there are very few people who are keeping Yah's law, and almost everyone is not. Almost everyone is following their heart and living a lawless and sinful lifestyle. So, which is exactly what 2nd Ezra said was going to happen. In the later days, there will be so much lawlessness. Even Yeshua said that in Matthew 24, that lawlessness will abound. So, the problem we have for us, we are such in a dilemma. We are such in a very, very difficult situation, because you see the world completely upside down and going their own way and following the Gentiles, and the Gentiles are leading people to hell. The problem we have is that we are now stuck in a situation where the Most High is telling us not to do that, not to follow them. The Most High is telling us to go back to the old ways. That's Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 16 to 22. Yah is telling us that we have to go back to the old ways and do things the way that it used to be done back in the old days. So we are supposed to be imitating Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Ruth, Rachel. All these holy men and women were supposed to be looking at what they did and living our lifestyle just like them. So, but we're in a world where people are going in a totally different direction. That's the situation that we faced right now. For some people, they can easily do this. For some people, it will be very difficult. And then that's why you begin to see people beginning to look for loophole. Looking for loophole. How do I do this? There has to be a better way to do this. What they're really saying, I do get calls, and people, typically, some of them I hear. There was one I got like last week or a few days ago. Typically, as soon as I tell them exactly what the law says, they'll be like, okay, thank you, and they'll hang up because they don't want to do it. So because they want to hear me give them a loophole. They know exactly what the law says, and they call me and they say, what does the law say about this? And then I tell them, and then they will be like, okay, thank you, bye. So, or sometimes they may try to tell me that God will understand. There was a lady that wants to marry a Gentile, and she called me, and I told her where to read in the book of Jubilees. And I told, as soon as she understood exactly what I was trying to say, she began to say, oh, well, God will understand. God will do this. God will, he will understand when he's going to be burning, destroying you. When you get stuck, under his wrath, that's when you will see his true understanding. So we have to make a choice, all this stuff. So going back to the Ishmaelite, the Hebrew Ishmaelite, those people are Hebrews. They're Hebrews. They're not going through the curses of Deuteronomy chapter 28. Those curses applies to the Hebrew Israelite. You have the Hebrew Israelite and you have the Hebrew Ishmaelite, because Abraham was a Hebrew. So that's where those people come from. And their practices, their custom, they do what people call arranged marriage, which you see in the Bible that Abraham did. The so-called Arabs are still doing that today. They do arranged marriage, meaning that the parents will find and arrange a wife or husband for their children. They do that today, and their children marry at such a young age. As soon as they see their period, they marry. That's also something you see in the Bible. Most of these things, the Hebrews are no longer doing these things, because most of the stuff that the Hebrews do today are the things that they've learned from the Gentiles. For the Hebrews today, you simply wear tuxedo and wedding gown and call some people and get a wedding reception or whatever, and you're married. That's not biblical. The so-called Muslims are still doing, some of them, not all of them, but majority of them are still doing it, or a lot of them are still doing it the way it's supposed to be done according to the Bible. So that's basically arranged marriage, and that's what you see in Judges chapter 14 and Genesis 24, and where else? Jubilees chapter 30. Yeah, Jubilees 30. You will also see, actually, look at Jubilees 30 and Genesis 34. You see, look at these two places. You see a man that sees Jacob's daughter, and he made a mistake of having sex with her initially because he was a Gentile. He was a Gentile. So he takes a Hebrew girl, has sex with her, and then he went home and told his dad to go marry that girl for him. His action ended up, well, not only his action, but the fact that they were Gentiles also ended up costing them their lives. So, and you see how the Hebrews, this is a wonderful place to go from and go back to Exodus, because this is going to take us back to the killing. You shall not murder. So now that we came to the situation of the Shechems and the Hebrew, so he takes Dinah. He took Dinah and had sex with Dinah, Jacob's daughter. Jacob and his children ended up killing those Gentiles, killing them all, killing all their males. So that takes us back to Exodus chapter 20, verse 13, which says, "You shall not murder." This is where we went from. We went from Exodus chapter 20, verse 13, that says, "You shall not murder." We went from here, and I began to give you an example of, if you do rape my daughter, you're going to force me to kill you. You will force me to do that. Because Yah says that if someone rapes a girl, they are to be killed. You don't rape a girl. You don't do that. If you want to marry her and you go to the family and they say yes, then you go ahead and marry her. If they say no, then no means no. If they say no, there's a reason why they said no. If you then go ahead to have sex with her, then you're bringing death upon you. And you're basically forcing them to kill you. And if they do kill you, they will not go to hell. They will not go to hell. Because Yah said that whoever rapes a girl should be killed. And we also don't do girlfriend and boyfriend. We don't do that. We do betrothing though. Something called betrothing. Example of this is Miriam and Joseph. So before she became pregnant with Yeshua, they were betrothed. That's something that we do. But within that period, no sex, no sexual contact. The girl will remain a virgin until their wedding night. So, but girlfriend, no. That's a Gentile thing. Dating, no. We don't do all that. There's betrothing. Sometimes people get betrothed when a girl is like 5 years old. They get betrothed and then they keep waiting and waiting for her to be ready. Also, when that betrothing is done, that betrothing allows people to investigate and do the investigation and find out if this is something that will go on or not. But within that period, no sex, because as soon as you have sex, that's marriage right there. And all this is found in Deuteronomy chapter 22. So that's something we do. We don't do girlfriend. You have to discourage your children from doing boyfriend and girlfriend relationship. And you have to constantly teach your children that sex is something that you only do on your wedding night. If you don't teach them these things, other people will teach them these things outside. and it's not going to end very well when they do get taught outside. So that's what we see in Exodus chapter 20 verse 13. Exodus 20:13. It also says, okay, so this one we may leave this one. Verse 14, you shall not commit adultery. This one, because we have like 1 minute to go. But you know what? We'll just cover the 10 commandments. Okay, so you shall not commit adultery is something that is, it's something that basically the stuff we've been taught about this, it's really not what it is. Our understanding of committing adultery is so way off from what the Bible says that even you can see it and you will understand that this, like our whole understanding of this is based on Christianity, which is based on the Gentiles, their thinking. So when Yah says you shall not, when Yah says that you shall not commit adultery, okay, so Yah says you shall not commit adultery. You shall not commit adultery. That's a law. The thing, what I find, the reason why the reason why I'm saying this way is because of our understanding is so laughable. Our understanding of this law today, it's a joke. It's a joke, absolute joke, compared to what it really is. So example, take for example, let's see if the Spirit will lead us in a way to put this thing in a way that you will understand it the way that the way it's supposed to be. Because our whole concept of marriage is so screwed up. It's not biblical. Today, the world understanding and concept of marriage is so upside down. The interesting thing about this is that marriage is from the Most High. He instituted marriage. So it makes sense that if we're going to do marriage, we have to do it the way He told us to do it. But it's so upside down. So screwed up. So it says in Exodus chapter 20 verse 14, you shall not commit adultery. You shall not commit adultery. What does that mean? Okay, look at David. David, take for example, David, he was at home, he was chilling, he was relaxing, he was upstairs by the balcony of his palace. He looked down, he saw a woman who was taking shower because they live downstairs. And typically people will have their bathroom in the back of the house. Even in West Africa today, some people do that. So they have the bathroom in the back of their house. And if somebody is upstairs somewhere, they will be able to see you showering. So this lady was outside showering, and David was chilling on his balcony, and then saw this woman, lusted after her, sent someone to go call her. They called her because he obviously saw her nakedness. See, this is the reason why part of the reason why you have to cover your nakedness. Don't let Satan use you. I'm talking to mainly the women, but the men also. We have to dress in an appropriate way. Even the men. If you wear something that is not moderate and your butt is shaking and it's so obvious and so tight, and you're wearing something up here, but we can pretty much see your nipple These are things that turns men on. I'm gonna say it for like it is. I'm not gonna censor this thing. I'm not gonna water this thing down, because that's part of the reason why we have so much problem today. That's the reason why. Think about this. Look at the F word. Look at how popular that F word is. Because Satan, through his children, have tried to ban it. If you want to make something popular, ban that thing. Then it becomes popular. Also, if you really want people to become curious about something, give them the impression that they shouldn't talk about that thing. Then they will become really, really interested about that thing. That's what we have today with sex. So typically, most parents don't like to talk about sex to their children. They do not like to talk about sex. And Satan wants it that way. You have to talk about sex with your children. You have to constantly be talking about sex, reminding them that this is something that the Most High have established. It's good, but it can only be done when you are married. You have to constantly keep doing this. Satan doesn't want you to do this. So I'm going to say these things for what it is. I'm not going to water this thing down right now. I'm not going to censor it. If you don't like it, close your ears. I'm talking about dressing. If you wear something that is very, very tight, that's not good. I'm speaking from the word of Yah, but I'm also speaking as a man. And any real man that do not have spirit of homosexual will testify to what I'm talking about. There are things in women's body that turn men on. It's no coincidence that you see that the normal dressing of today, look at how majority of the women that you see today, when you go out tomorrow, look around you, most women are wearing something very tight. Tight jeans, tight anything. Anything they wear has to be tight. It has to be tight. It's no coincidence. This is what happens. They have allowed themselves to be used by Satan. When men see stuff like that, it turns them on. I tell people, that man may not approach you and ask for your number or talk to you about sex. They may not approach you after they have seen you. They may not approach you, but I will tell you what they will do. They will head over to the next strip club. They will head over to the next porn store. They will head over to the next place that hawkers are walking around. But they get to that mood because of seeing your dressing. And I'm telling you, the Most High will not let you go unpunished. The Most High will also punish that man for his actions. But the Most High will punish you for allowing Satan to use you, because the Most High have already told you to dress moderately. Hebrew women do not wear tight clothing. Because tight clothing are things, it's like when I see women today that wear all the stuff that they wear, they're pretty much naked. We shouldn't see the shape of your body. So you see David up there on top of his house, seeing this woman naked. Then he sends someone to go call her. And then, so when she came, and of course, through persuasion, this woman did not ask for this thing. But she was minding her business, taking shower. But by seeing her nakedness, this made David to begin to lust after her, which then led to what happened. So what happened there was adultery, because she was married. She had a husband, that she's married to. So that was adultery. He committed an adultery because her husband is still alive. Now, that's one example. You also have other examples where, for example, Moses, for example. Moses was already married. Moses or Moshe had wives. He was already married. But then he decided to marry another woman. His sister got angry because she didn't like that woman. It was because she did not like the woman. She got a little bit racist, or if you want to say, not really racist, but she didn't approve of it. That really made angry. So here we have a situation where you see a married man that wants to marry another woman. Someone got offended, and got offended at that person that got offended. So why didn't get offended that Moses was about to marry another woman? According to the worldly system today, Moshe will be committing adultery because according to them, he already has a wife. So any other contact with another woman, according to the world, will be adultery. According to the world, who dares to define marriage, even though they don't want to have anything to do with the law, and yet they want to tell us what adultery is. Adultery is a biblical term. You can only understand what it means by looking at the scriptures. The Bible tells you what it means. So you have one example that I gave you with David. And then you have another example with Moshe, when he wanted to marry another woman. Did not say anything against that, but rather punished his sister for speaking against Moshe. We also have in 2 Samuel chapter 12, where himself said that he was the one that made David a polygamist. He said that 2 Samuel chapter 12 verse 8, I gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your keeping, and gave you the house of Israel and Yehuda. And if that had been too little, I also would have given you much more. So you see, taking a bunch of women and giving them to David and his master's house, which is Saul. These are Saul's wives. After Saul, of course, died, is not going to take those women when their husband is still alive. The Most High will not go against his own law. So why will God take multiple women and give to David as wives? Wouldn't that be adultery when David touches those women? That will be an adultery. But the reason why it was not was because their husband was dead. That made them available. So when David now touches them, it will not be adultery. You will also see with the situation with Abigail. With Abigail, her husband was a very wicked man. Well, that situation went down. Her husband ended up dead. Yah killed her husband. And then Abigail ended up becoming David's wife. David sent a message to her and said, "Would you like to be my wife?" She said, "Yes." And she became David's wife. Wouldn't that be an adultery? Well, in the worldly system today, of course, that would be an adultery. So according to the world, a man that has one wife, any other contact, if he does marry another, if he goes and do anything with another woman, that's adultery. But biblically, as long as the woman that man is going to go to is a virgin or a widow, that is not adultery. Example, David. You see, David, if that woman if she was a virgin, David would not have committed any sin. Or if her husband was dead, if David was outside hanging out on his balcony and saw that woman, but her husband was dead, it wouldn't have been a sin because she's a widow. The problem is that she has a husband, so it becomes an adultery. So today, for a man that has a wife, if he goes out and has sex with another woman whose husband is still alive or who is no longer a virgin, that would be an adultery. But example, let me use myself. I keep using Moshe and David as an example. Let me use someone that is here right now. And I'm comparing worldly definition of adultery versus biblical definition of adultery. If I have a wife and she's truly my wife, and I see another young girl who is a virgin or who got married, her husband died, for whatever reason her husband is dead, so she's no longer a virgin, but she has only been with one man and that man is dead, then if I take her and marry her, not have sex with her once and move on, no, not have one night stand, no. If I take her and bring her home and provide a place for her, according to the worldly standard right now, that will be considered as an adultery. But in the sight of the Most High God, that's not adultery because she's a virgin or a widow, meaning that she's been with one man and that one man died, then she's a widow. But if I have a wife in the house, and then I go find another young woman or young girl who is a virgin, and then I bring her home also and provide a place for her to stay and provide for her, the people of the world will say that I'm committing adultery. And when you ask them why, they will say because I'm already married. But in the sight of Yah, that will not be an adultery. The requirement is that she has to be a virgin or a widow. But in other hand, if I have a wife in the house and I go out, see some woman out there, and I just go have sex with her, that's an adultery, and I will be punished severely by the Most High God for doing that. If I see a virgin and I take her, I have sex with her, and I dump her and move on and don't take her in as my wife, I will be punished severely by the Most High, because I'm going against what he said in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 28 and 29, which says that as soon as I take her virginity, then I have to take her as my wife, and I cannot put her away all my life. So But if I just randomly see a woman out there for whatever reason and I have sex with her, that's adultery. But if she's a virgin and I bring her home, yeah, the world will say that it's still an adultery, because if you ask them, they will say, because I have a wife already. But in the sight of Yah, that's not an adultery. That's why you see the situation with Moshe, having already has a wife. But still, he still wanted to marry someone else, and there was no issue. David, even before David died, they found a wife for him. Even before he died, after Solomon was grown, Absalom, all his kids are grown. He was very old. But at the end, they still found a young girl to take care of him. He ended up not having sex with that girl before he died. But they still found a wife, while all his wives was there. All his wives was all there. Read the book of Kings. All David's wives was there, but they still found a young girl to be his wife. He was so old that he's just like, I guess at that point, sex is no longer pleasurable when you're that old. So he ended up not having sex with her, according to the Bible. So the world's definition of adultery is so upside down. It's based on the idea that of one wife and one husband. That's what it's based on. But it's not biblical. It's laughable. It's a joke, and I don't take it serious because it's not biblical. Abraham. Wasn't she the one that brought in her maid? So according to the world definition of adultery, Sarah is actually the one that perpetrated, or the one that encouraged the adultery. If we go by today's worldly standard of adultery, then Sarah will be the one that started that adultery, because Abraham never asked for a second wife. Abraham did not ask for a second wife. It was Sarah that brought her maid and gave her maid to Abraham. Was that too much? Was that like too far away, all the way back in history? Well, look at Israel. The 12 tribe of Israel came from 4 women and 1 man. The 12 tribes of Israel came from 4 women and 1 man. Do you know how they got to become 4 women? It was actually the decision of women that decided to bring in more women. So you go back to Genesis chapter 29, Genesis 28, 29. You see the situation with Leah and Rachel. Initially, Jacob wanted to marry 1 wife. He really, really, really loved her. This man was pretty much pushed into the rest of all the women that he married. Starting from the beginning, initially, he wanted to marry 1 woman. And he loved her. Everything I'm telling you right now is according to the Bible. It may be sounding like a fairy tale, but go to Genesis. Go to Genesis and you will see that. We're dealing with adultery right now. Like, as I was laughing when we started, I was just laughing because the reason why I was laughing is that the world's definition of adultery is so upside down. It's such a joke and laughable that if you understand the biblical understanding of adultery, you wouldn't take these people seriously. And that's what happens when you don't keep the law. You wouldn't understand what's going on. So Genesis 29, Genesis 30, you see Jacob. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I would rather suggest that you read the whole thing at your own time. Start from Genesis 29. So initially, when Jacob came to Laban, initially he wanted to marry one of his daughters. The father-in-law ended up lying to him and tricking him into marrying the second one too. So now he ended up with 2 women, but he only wanted one. And then those 2 women ended up bringing in 2 more women. Jacob didn't sign up for this. He only signed up for one initially. But that's to tell you the mindset of the women of that time. They were not as jealous and rebellious and Gentile-minded as the women of today. They thought differently. They were all about family. How do we expand our family? That's how these women thought. Sarah, Rachel, Leah. It's all right there in your Bible. They were so secure. People will talk about insecure. Women of today are so insecure. Very selfish and insecure. Most women of today. And you see by action. Which woman of today will tell her husband when she herself cannot have a child? Think a woman will tell her husband to go marry another woman? Hell no. So talk about insecurity. I guess Sarah was uneducated. Yeah, I guess Sarah was uneducated and Sarah didn't know better. I guess she was a fool, or she has bad judgment. I guess. I mean, comparing with, I guess she doesn't have any degree, right? She didn't go to school. She has a timid mindset. Okay. So, Genesis 29, Jacob, and we're talking about 12 tribes of Israel. This is something that Yah was very, very much involved in. Because Yah had a plan for the 12 tribes of Israel. So you can't tell me that he wasn't aware of where these people are going to come from and how they were going to come about. So every action and the stuff going on between Jacob and his wives, Yah knew about it and Yah kept quiet. When these women was bringing on other women into the marriage for their husband to marry these other women, Yah knew about it and Yah kept quiet. By world's definition of adultery, that would be adultery. So initially, as you can see for yourself, if you read Genesis 29, Jacob only wanted to marry, he only wanted to marry one. It says in Genesis 29, Genesis 29, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Starting from verse 15. Let me see if I can get it from verse 15. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what should be your wages? What should your wages be?" Verse 16. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Verse 17. Leah's eyes were delicate, but Rachel's was beautiful and form of appearance. Verse 18. Now, Jacob loved Rachel. See that thing I was telling you about young men making decisions of wife? They're thinking about now. They're thinking about looks. How she looks, how he looks. So Jacob, a young man, is going for the beautiful one. So it says in verse 18, Genesis 29:18. Now Jacob loved Rachel. So he said, I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. And Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than I should give her to another man. Notice the language that he was using. Please, I hope you notice the language that this man was using. This language justifies what I was telling you earlier, that the parents are the one that decides who their children marries. Look at verse 19. Look at what he said in verse 19. This is the Hebrew culture. Look at verse 19. Genesis chapter 29 verse 19. This man said, and Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to another man. Stay with me. I want you to imagine this today. Just imagine, like right now. Imagine a man talking about giving her daughter to a man. Imagine a man just like right now saying it's better than that. Imagine a Gentile saying to another man, I'm going to give my daughter to you. People are going to be like, what? What? Is she your property or something? Is she your slave? Just imagine how dramatic that will be. If men will not even have balls enough to make a statement like this today. They will be so scared to make a statement like this. When I speak to men, they will tell me, oh, let me talk to my wife. All right, let me discuss that with my wife. Once you tell me that, I'm done. I'm pretty much done. And if I could move on for whatever it is that we're talking about, if I can move on, I will move on. Unless if I have no choice, then I will continue to deal with you. Because that's a sign. It tells me something. Oh, let me talk to my wife. Let me discuss with my wife. So look at this statement in verse 19. Verse 19. Genesis 29:19. And Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to another man. Stay with me. So that was the arrangement. Notice how he did not tell Jacob the truth. Jacob was asking for the second daughter, Rachel. This man lied to him. He deceived Jacob. How did he deceive Jacob? Because in the Hebrew culture, the first daughter gets married first before the second daughter. In the Hebrew culture, he didn't tell Jacob, he didn't really explain stuff to Jacob until later on, because he wanted to exploit Jacob. Even till today, among the Igbos, the Hebrews in West Africa, they still do the same thing. Usually, the first daughter has to get married before the second. Usually, if the second daughter, if there's a man that wants to marry her and all the investigation is done and everything is fine, they still have to pretty much wait until the first daughter gets married before the second. Even among the Hebrews or the Igbos in today in West Africa, they still do this thing today. And they didn't even this isn't something that they started 50 years ago. This is something they've been doing for a long time, for hundreds of years, even before they got back the Bible again. So at this point, in verse 19, was when he would have told Jacob, no, I can't give you the second daughter because the first one, Leah, is still unmarried. You're going to have to take Leah. You can't take Rachel. But he kept quiet. He said, okay. So they agreed, and then Jacob began to serve. And then after 7 years, look at what happened. Verse 20. Genesis 29, verse 20. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed only a few days to him because of the love he had for her. Verse 21. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in to her. Did you see that? Did you remember that time in the gospel when the Bible said that there was a young woman, a young virgin betrothed to a husband? And that would be Miriam or Mary. The Bible says there was a young virgin that was betrothed to a husband. They weren't married yet, but Joseph was being described as Miriam's or Mary's husband. So once a man and a girl is betrothed, once that betrothing period starts, she is basically considered his wife, even though they hadn't had sex yet. And if you also go through Deuteronomy chapter 22, you will see what I'm talking about. Even Yah said something about this in Deuteronomy chapter. You should read Deuteronomy chapter 22. Deuteronomy 22, pretty much from verse 13 all the way to verse 29 talks about marriage. So that's why he said here, give me my wife, let me go in unto her. But why did he say, let me go in unto her? Why didn't he say, let's organize for a wedding? No, because as soon as he goes in unto her, boom, officially in the sight of Yah, she becomes his wife. That's the reason why he made this. I don't know the translation that you're reading. I hope you're seeing the same thing. But in verse 21, Jacob said to Laban, Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, meaning that he has finished serving. So instead of paying bride price, which we do, 50 shekels of silver, we pay 50 shekels of silver. Instead of paying bride price, you can also pay it by serving the person. So Jacob didn't have money to pay the bride price, which we do with 50 shekels of silver. I actually do have it. I have, maybe one of these days I will show you guys what it looks like. I have the actual silver, the Hebrew money that we use to pay for marriage, the currency of the Hebrews. I don't have it with me right here, but maybe some other time I'll bring it and show it to you. So he didn't have that 50 shekels of silver. Today, it will be in equivalent of almost $400. It's worth about $400, that equivalent of 50 shekels of silver. So he didn't have it. So he ended up serving for 7 years to pay for that bride price. When he was done, he said, give me my wife, let me go in unto her. So for those that say that sex doesn't equal marriage, when people have sex, it doesn't mean marriage, it tells you that in Deuteronomy chapter 22. That's what Yah says in verse 28 and 29. You take somebody's virginity, she becomes your wife, period. So that's the reason why this man, Jacob, said over here in Genesis 29:21. He says, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, meaning that I'm done serving you. For my days are fulfilled, that I may go in to her. I may go into her. That's the same word or the same phrase you see in Genesis 24. when they brought Rebekah to Isaac, what did the Bible say? He took her, he went into his mother's tent, and he went into her. And they became husband and wife. That's kind of the same thing you see Jacob talking about here. Give me my wife, let me go into her. Of course, you know what that means. That's sex. Because she was a virgin. And then going on to her and then become husband and wife. Okay, so verse 22. Verse 22. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. This will be the kind of wedding that Yeshua went to. But like as I said, you don't have to do this. And Genesis 24 shows this. You don't have to do it. I can see a young woman, if everything is done and everything is fine and we're ready to go, I can marry her. Just, you don't have to invite anyone. It can be between the two families. That's it. You don't have to throw a party. It's optional. There's no law that says that you have to do it. But also doing it is not sin. If you want to do it, fine. So it says in verse 22, and Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. Verse 23, now it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to Jacob, and he went in to her. Now you may say, wait a minute. How did Jacob not know? I'm sorry if I keep calling him Jacob. I'm talking about Jacob. But because, you know, like his real name is Jacob, not Jacob, because of the J. So I'm talking about Jacob, and I'm saying Jacob. So you may say that this isn't right. This story is not right. Why didn't he know? Because when that wedding night came in the evening, instead of this man bringing the second daughter, Rachel, which is who Jacob wanted, he ended up bringing the first daughter. But he didn't say anything. He did not say anything. So you may be wondering, how did Jacob not know? Okay, let's maybe get through one more verse. So, verse 23. Now it came to pass that in the evening, that Jacob, that he took Leah, Laban. Laban is the one that did this. Now it came to pass that in the evening that he, Laban, took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her, meaning they had sex. He actually literally went into her. You know what that means. So verse 24, and I don't mean went into her as in use a knife, use a knife to break her, that's that's not what I mean. For the kids who are among us, maybe parents, you should explain to them what that means to went into her, just in case if they're wondering. Okay, so it says in verse 23, Genesis 29:23, and it came to pass that in the evening that he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Verse 24, and Laban gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a maid. That's another thing that we do also. I'm not going to get too much into that right now. Maybe I think I may have in the past gotten into about giving maid when a girl gets married. It's usually done because typically the Hebrew girls are usually very young when they get married, usually at around the age of 12, 13, 14, when they see their period. Some girls see their period at the age of 12, some see their period at the age of 13, 14, 15. So the parents will sometimes give a maid to that girl. You see that with Rachel, Genesis 24. Where else? You see this in different places where they actually will give a maid, like you see here. But it's not a law. It's not a requirement, and that's why I don't really bother to get too much into it. It's not a law because not everybody can afford it. Not everybody can afford to do that, to give a maid to their child when they get married. So it's not a law. It's for those that can afford to do this. So you don't have to do it. So it says in verse 24, and Laban gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a maid. Verse 25, so it came to pass in the morning that, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, meaning Jacob, he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me? He did deceive him. He should have told him in the beginning, sorry, I can't give you the second daughter because the first one is not married yet. He didn't say that. He kept quiet because he has a plan to get 12 years, 14 years of service from Jacob. That's why I told you that when you deal with people who don't keep the law, you have to be very careful. They can do anything, especially when it comes to material things. Dealing with people who don't keep the law is so dangerous. You got to be very, very careful. There's nothing they cannot do. Because people who don't keep the law are like wild animal. If I don't keep the law, I will be like a wild animal. There's nothing I cannot do. People will act nice and do all that stuff. The law of the Most High God is the only thing that restricts us. It's the only thing that guides us. It's the only thing that makes us to behave like a human being. Without the law, people are wild beasts, wild animals. That is just the truth. What stops me from killing you? What stops me from robbing you? What stops me from raping you if I can? What stops me from ripping you off? The law. Without the law, nothing stops me. Now, people will pretend to be good people, to be nice people, to be this, to be that. Yeah, when everything is going well. When they become desperate, they will do anything to get whatever they want. The law is the only thing that restricts us or guides us. When you're dealing with people who don't keep the law, you have to be extremely careful. This relationship over here did not end well between Jacob and Laban. Jacob ended up taking his wives and fled. It got to, because as soon as he met Laban, and you saw how the relationship started, Laban deceived him. Eventually, as they began to do business together, it came to a point that Jacob decided, if I keep staying here, this man is going to kill me. And Jacob decided to take his wives and left, and he did. People who don't keep the law, our brothers, our sisters, our mom, you see people killing their parents, you see parents killing their children, you see men having sex with their daughters, you see all kinds of filth and abomination that goes on in the world. And that's because people are not observing the law. You cannot trust people who don't keep the law. You cannot. That's why when you deal with people, when you have to do that investigation, you have to be careful. But at the same time, you're not going to leave your son to become unmarried or your daughter to become unmarried because you feel like you haven't found somebody that keeps the law. You have to be careful not to deceive yourself also. So, Jacob was so surprised in the morning Verse 25, Genesis 29:25. So it came to pass in the morning that, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me? And then look at verse 26. And Laban said, it must not be done so in our land or our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. Verse 27. Yeah, you're telling him right now. You should have told him that in the beginning. You should have told him that in verse 19. But he kept quiet. He didn't tell him. So look at what he says in verse 27, which is this is what this is really all about. It's all about materialism. And people will do anything to get material stuff. So what he should have told him in verse 19, he didn't say it. And then in verse 27, you see his motives. So in verse 27, he says, fulfill her week, and we will give you this one also, for the service which you will serve with me still another 7 years. So when I tell you that Jacob did not want to marry multiple wives, he wanted to marry Rachel. But you see how he was basically put into a situation, because first of all, he's stuck. According to the law of the Most High, Leah is his wife. And Jacob knows this. Jacob knew this. According to Deuteronomy chapter 22, according to Yah's law, Jacob is stuck with Leah. He never wanted to marry Leah. He saw Leah and still became interested in Rachel. If he wanted to have Leah, he should have become interested in her. So you see how he was put into the situation. And the fact that he took her virginity, that's it, case closed. She is his wife. He cannot turn around and say, well, yeah, I was tricked into it. That's absolute nonsense. Bull crap. He can say that. I was tricked into it. Yah is not going to say, oh, okay, I guess because you were tricked into it, I'm going to suspend Deuteronomy chapter 2, suspend the law that I gave about marriage. That's not going to happen. Yeah, you were tricked into it. Okay, I'm going to punish the man that tricked you, but she's still your wife. Why? Because you took her virginity. So Jacob understood this, and he wasn't even bothering to try to get out of it. He did not even bother. Rather, he continued to pursue the person that he really wanted, which was Rachel. And these are women that ended up giving birth to the 12 tribes of Israel. We're talking about the women that gave birth to the 12 tribes of Israel that you know of today. These are the women that we're reading about here. So, where was I? So, verse 28. Or let's continue from verse 27. Genesis 29:27. Fulfill her week, and we will give you this one also, for the service which you will serve with me still another 7 years. Verse 28. Then Jacob did so, and fulfilled her week. So he gave him his daughter Rachel as wife also. Verse 29. And Laban gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as a maid. Verse 30. Then Jacob also went in to Rachel. Why did he say? It says that he went into Leah. He said, give me my wife, let me go into her. And then in that evening, he was giving Leah. I'm going to get to why Jacob did not know. I'm going to get to that. But why do you keep seeing going into? Because that's when the marriage actually begins, when that sex happens. So it says in verse 30, Genesis 29 verse 30, then Jacob also went into Rachel, and he also loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served with Laban still another 7 years. So if you continue to read in chapter 30, which I'm going to leave that for you. If you read Genesis chapter 30, you will see how these two women, we just went through how they came in and how Jacob ended up with 2 wives. But if you read chapter 30, you will see how these women, these 2 women, ended up bringing in other 2 women and giving them to Jacob. Now, I have to be careful. When I say bringing in, I don't want you to think like the Gentiles and think that they're having threesome or something and they're having like multiple sex together. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about them bringing a woman and giving that woman to their husband, for their husband to marry that woman. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about legitimate marriage here. I'm not talking about having just like one night stand. No. So you will see how these 2 women, 2 wives of Jacob, ended up basically introducing other women to their husband, and their husband ended up marrying those other 2 women. And then now they are 4 women plus Jacob. And these 4 women was the one that gave birth to Levi, Benjamin, all the 12 tribes of Israel came from these 4 women. So if you look at the whole situation, according to the world definition of adultery, Leah will be the only wife, will be the legitimate wife of Jacob or Jacob. Rachel coming in second. The worldly people of today, the Gentiles and those that think like the Gentiles, will tell you, oh no, that's not right. That's adultery. That's not right. And then to look at these same 2 women bringing in 2 more women for their, and mind you, they have kids, they had children. So, you know, like it's, I mean, you can understand, you can give excuse. You know, feminists out there, those that don't want to accept what Yah says and believes that marriage should be only between one man and one woman. They will tell you that, they may tell you, maybe I should give them, when I say this thing, maybe they will take it and run with it as one of the excuse. I've never had anybody give this excuse, but I'm just saying that someone out there may decide to argue that the reason why Sarah did what she did was because she didn't have a child. Well, go to Genesis 29 and see, because at the end it says over here, it says in verse 31. Look at what began to happen between these 2 women. So they were actually having children. Genesis 29, when Yah saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb. Oh, so Yah was watching the whole situation going down. So when this whole thing was happening, Yah was watching. And then Jacob, as you would expect, Jacob loved Rachel, which was the person that he wanted in the first place. So you're not really going to blame him for not loving Leah. You can't force him to love somebody that he doesn't love. He wanted Rachel. He was tricked and deceived into marrying someone else. So, but when Yah saw, remember what I kept saying, that Yah cannot go against his law. So, just because that the whole thing happened, which was a very unfortunate situation because of the greed of Laban, his father-in-law. The whole thing was unfortunate because of greed of one man. putting Jacob in or Jacob in that situation. But still, you see how Yah treated Leah. When the marriage started and everything, Jacob ended up loving Rachel and didn't really love Leah. But look at what Yah did. Yah made Leah to begin to have children. So it says over here, Genesis chapter 29, verse 31. When Yah saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Who did that? Yah. Yah did that. Verse 32. Genesis 29, 32. So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. That's where the tribe of Reuben came from. For she said, Yah has surely looked on me, looked on my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. Verse 33. Then she conceived again and bore a son, and said, because Yah has heard that I am unloved, he has therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. That's where the tribe of Simeon came from. You see, that's the thing with the Hebrew people. Our names mean something. If you go down to West Africa among the Hebrews over there right now, their names typically mean something. And their names typically has to do with God's name. You will see people with the name of, you will typically see the name of Chika, Chinyere, Chikere, Chikodre, Chidis, Chidat, because what they call God Chi, meaning the creator. So Chika means that God is the greatest. So most people's name over there actually means something, and they give names based on the situation, based on what's going on to them, based on what's happening. If a woman is having a very hard time or whatever, or there was something going on, or she's pregnant and she's about to give birth, her mom or her dad dies, she will most likely give her child a name that is kind of like a sorrowful name, or a name that shows that she's, that maybe God has cleaned up her tears because of her loss. So people give names based on what situation that they're going through, even among the Hebrews today in West Africa. So she said, where did I stop? At Simeon, verse 34. Verse 34, she conceived again and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband will become attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name was called Levi. That's where the tribe of Levi came from. Verse 35, and she conceived again and bore a son, and said, now I will praise Yah. Therefore she called his name Judah, or Yehuda. So then she stopped bearing after having all this son. Okay, so you go to chapter 30. I'm going to leave that chapter 30 for you. But eventually, verse 30, verse 1, let's maybe do a couple of verses. Verse 1, now when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, give me children or else I die. And Jacob's anger was aroused against Rachel, and he said, am I in the place of Elohim, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? So Jacob knew. You see, that's the thing with those that keep Yah's law. When stuff is happening, they know. And if they tell people what's going on, people will think, oh yeah, oh okay. People will think that they're crazy. So Jacob understood what was going on. Jacob understood that the reason why Rachel was not conceiving children was because of Yah. He knew that. He understood what was going on. He knew. He understood how the whole thing went down, and he knew that he didn't love Leah. And that most likely, because he didn't love Leah, Yah was going to intervene and not going to let Leah be oppressed, or let Leah, be, because Leah did not get herself in that situation. She did not get herself in that situation. She didn't have much say. All the decisions are left for the parents. The parents are the ones that makes the decision in terms of who the children marry. Speaking of her not getting herself into that situation, let's go back to that Genesis 29 that I told you. I was going to show you why Jacob did not know. Because Leah did not get her. Leah was not like, oh, let's deceive him. Leah had nothing to do with this. She was put into this situation. So for you parents out there, you have to be careful. So she was put into this situation, and Yah saw that. And Yah was not going to let her suffer because of the wickedness of her father like that, because she was purely innocent. And also, her attitude and her behavior matters a lot. If she was a rebellious person that rebels against Yah's word, Yah is not going to intervene. She's going to be there. She's going to be unloved. Whether she has children or not, she will still be unloved. But because she's a God-fearing woman that genuinely fears Yah, if she wasn't a God-fearing woman, Yah will not even appoint her for this work. This was something that Yah had put in place. These people are all players. Jacob, Leah, Rachel, the father-in-law, they were all players that has been chosen to put together the 12th tribe of Israel. So, but her attitude matters a lot. Yah will not intervene for a rebellious person, a rebellious man or woman. The Most High will not intervene for you. So back to Genesis 29. So in Genesis 29, in Genesis 29, it says in verse 21, Genesis 29, 21, this is verse 21. Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in to her." Verse 22, Genesis 29, 22. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. Verse 23. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. Now, what goes on here is that in the evening, even in West Africa right now, usually among the Hebrews over there right now, they usually do this in the evening. The feast will be done in the daytime, and then in the evening, the father will take her daughter and give her daughter to the man. You can go on YouTube and type in Igbo traditional marriage, and you watch some of the real, actual traditional marriage that people do, and they record it and they put it on YouTube. I think there's some on YouTube. You can watch it. Typically, the handing over of the girl is done in the evening, but right now they do it a little bit differently. Because typically they will hand over the girl, and pretty much 99% of the time among the Hebrews over there in West Africa, I will say 99% of the time the girl is no longer a virgin. Right now, unfortunately, most of the girls, I can tell you, they are no longer virgins, unless those that are extremely religious. Those that are extremely religious, they tend to keep their virginity until their wedding night. But 99% of the time, even though they're still doing the marriage the same way, almost the same way it was done in the Bible, but the real thing, the virginity part, is gone. So that's why if you happen to see that video on YouTube, when that happens, typically the man will hand over his daughter to the man, and then they will go home. But in the Hebrew culture, we do it a little bit differently in the Hebrew culture. And that was what happened here in Genesis 29. And you can also see more information about this in Deuteronomy chapter 22. Deuteronomy 22. Because what happens is that, like what happened here in Genesis 29, was that in the evening, so usually they will do the feast in the daytime. Then in the evening, the man will take the daughter, and there will be a room. There will be a room somewhere there. And basically from the daytime, people are eating and drinking. Maybe they killed a goat or a cow or whatever. There's a lot of food and lots of drink. It's a feast. So typically people, by evening time, people are just like really drunk, and their stomach is filled with food. It's a feast that people do put together. Today they call it wedding. So but while this is going on, in the evening time, the man will then take his daughter and give the daughter to the man. So what happens is that the girl will go into the room. The girl will go into the room, and the man will come into the room also. Of course, they will then have sex. And they have sex, and that's when the marriage begins. But also we do have something that we do. The man will give a white cloth, something white, something that may look like this. Something white will be given to them. So the blood, when they have sex, the blood that comes out from her, they will make sure that that blood touches the white cloth or white whatever, like white garment. It has to be white. The blood that touches it, that it has to come from her. That blood that comes, because if she's not a virgin, that blood will not come out. So that blood that comes out from her will touch this, and then they will keep the cloth. That's the evidence of her virginity, which they will keep, which they will then take and give to the father of the girl to keep. They have to keep it, that's the proof. Because sometimes in the future, something may go down. The man may decide that he doesn't want the girl, and he may turn around and claim that she wasn't a virgin. Well, the father will then bring this out. You can see more information about this in Deuteronomy chapter 22, from verse 13 to verse 21. And that was part of the judgment that Yah gave us on how to handle that kind of situation when that kind of thing goes down. And this has to be done. It has to be done because sometimes if something happens in the future and he finds another woman, and for whatever reason he decides to hate her, he can easily claim that she wasn't a virgin. By simply claiming that she wasn't a virgin, that marriage can end. But if you, the parents, has this, which came from your daughter, the blood that came from your daughter that touches this, that's the evidence of the virginity. So, and it still has to be done, even till this day. Even when the whole world or the rest of the Gentiles are no longer doing it and the Hebrews are not doing it, you have to do it for your daughter or for whatever. So what happened is that the girl will be led into the room. You can also see some information about this in Tobit, the book of Tobit. So the girl will be led into the room. The girl will go into the room. She knows what's going on. They are raised as Hebrew children. They understand. So she goes into the room, and then the man will go in there. And then, mind you that back then they didn't have street lights, like as I said yesterday. There was no street light. No street light. No, they don't have light like we do today. Like I'm sitting here, there's a light, shining on me. There's a light shining on you. I can see you, but I know that where you are, there are lights over there. So today we have electricity. Back then they didn't have electricity. I grew up in a small village. And I grew up in a small village. Sometimes we have to sleep with lamps. Sometimes basically when the sun goes down, you have a lamp. You're carrying a lamp. If you don't know what a lamp looks like, go on YouTube. go online on Google and type in a lamp, and and maybe you might be able to see, I don't know, you might be able to see a real lamp. If you type it in on Google, you may see like some modern lamps. I'm talking about real lamp. It's different from the modern one. You can't really, there's really no use of lamp in a Western culture, because in a place where you have electricity, there's really no need of a lamp. Rather, people use flashlight. Back then, they used a lamp. So pretty much, I grew up in a place, in a small village at some point, and we use lamps. So when the sun goes down, you light up the lamp. That's the lamp that Yeshua was talking about in Matthew 25. The 10 virgins that didn't have enough oil for their lamp. You use oil to use the lamp. So there's when the sun goes down, you use a lamp, but at some point you have to turn the lamp down or turn it off. If you're about to sleep, once you are in bed, once you get on your bed and you're about to sleep, it doesn't make any sense to leave the lamp on because you're just wasting the oil. So typically you will, as soon as everything is done, you go to bed, you may end up just putting the lamp out because there's no need. You're about to sleep. When you're sleeping, you don't need any light. And then you wake up in the morning when it's done. So back then, when the sun goes down, there's not a lot that happens. They did not have electricity. So if there's a lamp to go into the room and stuff, and also the dressing, you're talking about two girls that are pretty much about 1 year apart from each other. They're almost the same height, almost the same thing. They're sisters. One is older than the other. So, and also the dressing, the covering and the dressing. So, and those girls are very submissive. The Hebrew women are very submissive. So if her father tells her to do something, she's going to do it. And you can see that if you continue to read. After they got married to Jacob, when Jacob tells them to do something, they did it. When it was time for them to flee, when Jacob decided that staying with Laban was becoming too dangerous, Jacob decided that Laban may decide to kill him. When he told his wives, go pack the stuff, let's go, we're leaving, these women did not stand around there asking him why. Why are you telling us to leave our dad? Why are we leaving? Where are we going? Most women of today, you're going to have to explain to them why you're leaving, why you want them to follow you and leave their dad. You're going to have to explain and give them a detailed information of where you're going. And then you're going to have to explain to them what they're going to be doing there. You're going to have to assure them that everything they need is going to be there. I'm talking about women of today. Women of today, when you tell them that, and this is in a very dangerous situation, there was no time. He realized that because Laban traveled, Laban left. So Jacob decided to leave at that time, at the time that Laban traveled, to flee, because Yah was blessing him too much. Yah was blessing him, and Laban was becoming jealous. They made a deal. They were doing business together, and they made a deal. And Laban kept changing the deal. He kept changing the deal and kept changing the deal, and Yah continued to bless Jacob in their business. So Laban became jealous. So that made Jacob thought, if I keep doing this with this man, he's going to kill me and take all the business. So I'm going to flee. So that was a very dangerous moment. That was a time, there was no time to sit around and talk and explain. So when he told his wives, pack your stuff, we're leaving, they didn't stand around and begin to question him. If it was women of today, as I said, first of all, you're going to have to explain to them or to her why you want her to follow you and leave her dad. then you have to explain where you're going. You have to explain what she's going to be doing there. You have to assure her that that place, everything will, so, but that's, you see, that's, we can't do that. That's just, it's, this is a situation with Lot's wife. When an instruction was given, don't look back. She looked back, and you saw what happened. That was actually an example for the rest of the women to know. So when I do say that a woman who is rebellious, who don't follow the order that Yah has put in place, will not make it into the kingdom. Pretty much a woman that followed after Eve, a woman that decided not to behave like Sarah, Rachel, Ruth, all these other women, the woman that don't do that will not make it into the kingdom. The Most High will not tolerate a rebellious man, a weak man, or a rebellious woman. That's not going to happen. You cannot repeat the things that Adam did. He was a weak man, and he was a lawless man. So you can't repeat what Adam did and make it into the kingdom. Yeshua have already told you that in Revelation chapter 22 verse 14. And you cannot repeat what Eve did and make it into the kingdom. Yeshua also told you that those that will enter into the kingdom are those that keep the commandments. They are the ones that will be allowed to eat from the tree of life. So these women were that's the thing with Hebrew women. Read the book of Ruth. It's not that much. Look at her attitude. I've given an example with Hannah. Look at her attitude. The attitude must change, both for us men and for you women. Understanding must change. That thing that they have taught you indirectly in the world, that men and women are equal and we're all the same, and it's a lie. It's a lie from Satan that has been promoted by his children. And Yah created women to serve men. Ooh. Did you just say that? How dare you say that? Yeah, I just said that. It's biblical. I'm not going to get into it right now, but you can see it all over the scripture. That's why Paul tells you, when Paul speaks, he tells you that it's according to the law. And actually, yeah, I'm going to get into that, and that's in Genesis chapter 3. In Genesis chapter 3, you see chapter 3 verse 16. Look at what Yah says. He said that your husband will rule over you. And then Paul says in, Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 2, he says that a woman shall not usurp authority over a man. So basically, you can see the reason why Leah, how the whole thing could go down and Jacob would not know. Those women are extremely submissive. Extremely submissive. If her dad tells her to do something, she's going to do it. She will not question. That's the kind of... So you may not understand. See, that's the thing I always tell. Sometimes I do say this. If you don't understand the Hebrew culture, you wouldn't understand the Bible. It's so difficult to understand the Bible. Like if I ask you right now, if I ask you, the man that was stoned in Numbers chapter 15 for gathering the woods, why was he stoned? I'm sorry, what was that wood for? What does that wood mean? With the wood that he went to gather, what is that for? Most people in the Western culture will not know what that means. When Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 36 that if a man thinks he's behaving uncomely towards his virgin, if she has passed the flower of her age, let them marry. What the hell does that mean? Most people don't know what that means. If she has passed the flower of her age. Flower of her age? And this is the reason why most Bible translations have actually twisted this and watered it down. But Paul said if she has passed the flower of her age, what does that mean? Most people don't know what this means. If you were here when we broke it down, we broke this thing down, we went back into the Torah and we saw where Paul got what he was saying. That flower there means blood, according to Leviticus chapter 15. The flower means blood. So these women, according to, you can see why Leah, they were extremely, very, very, if her dad tells her to get ready, Jacob is going to marry you, she will not say a word. She will not say, but I don't like him, this, that. And for Gentiles, Gentiles cannot understand this. And that's why they don't understand the Bible. And that's one of the reasons why people will tell you that the law is done away with. The Old Testament is done, because they don't understand it. Example of what I just said about Leah. Example is there in Genesis 24. Abraham did not seek Isaac's opinion when looking for a wife. He sent someone to go find a wife for him. When they brought when they brought Rebekah to Isaac, he simply took her, he loved her, he went into her and he loved her, and that was it. He cannot question Abraham. He cannot do that. He cannot say why. So the mindset of these people you read about in the Bible is different from the mindset of the people of today. Like as I said earlier, the problem we have right now, the dilemma that we faced, is that Yah is telling us to go back and act like these people you read about in the Bible. In Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 16 to verse 22. So the problem is, how do you get to behave like these people in a world where people are behaving the opposite way? How do you get to do that? Can you do that? That's the challenge. And that's exactly what Yeshua is talking about. Except a man is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of heaven. Because everything we know and we've been taught is according to the ways of the Gentiles. Who runs the world? Who educated us? Now we have to get rid of all those things, including mindset. So you can see that, Laban, all he needs to do is tell Leah, get ready, Jacob is going to marry you. That's it. That evening, she will go into that room, she'll go into the bed and she's going to lay down. And Jacob is going to come in. And because it's dark, they will have a lamp, but pretty much once they're in the room, once he's in the bed, there's no need for a lamp. There's no need. That's why he didn't know. And also because of the way they cover themselves. I'm laughing because the reason why I just laugh right now is I just thought of the Hebrew women, the way the Hebrew women dressed. And the way even the Hebrew men. I see some Hebrew Israelites today, some Hebrew camps, and they wear stuff and they wear it and thinking that that's how the Hebrew men dressed. No. Genesis 37, verse 3, you see how when Jacob made when he made a garment for his son. Look at the kind of garment that he made for him in Genesis. In the book of Genesis, you will also see I've done a video about this. If you haven't watched it, watch the video that says dress code for God's people. Dress code for God's people. So if you watch that dress code for God's people, you will see how we have a dress code. There's a particular way that Yah wants us to dress. There's a particular way that he wants us to dress. And even among the Hebrew camps today, when you see those stuff that they wear, that's not really I'm sorry, but that's not really Hebrew dressing. You see how the Catholic priest dress? The Catholic priest. Now, you see how there are different ways that Catholic priests dress. I'm talking about those that wear just white robe. Those that wear simple white robe. That's how the Hebrew men dressed. White robe. It must not be white. It can be other colors. But typically it's white. It's a robe. So you have the Muslim men, Arab men are the one that dress the way that Hebrew men dressed. And that's also the same way that Yah dressed. When Isaiah, in Isaiah chapter 6, saw Yah, Yah was wearing a white robe. Even in the kingdom, those that make it into the kingdom will be given a white robe. So when I see these Hebrew camps today that wear these things that they wear, it's kind of like interesting or maybe funny because that's not the way that Hebrew men dressed. Hebrew men wore white robes, like as I said in Genesis chapter 37, verse 3. Genesis 37, verse 3, you will see what Jacob made for his son. So he in verse 3, he says, now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. Also, he made him a tunic of many colors. If you continue to read, you will see that when they finally sold him, when his brothers sold him off, that's how he ended up into Egypt. They took that, he made him something like this, a white robe. What they did was that they took it off from him and they killed a wild animal and took the blood and touched on the white garment that his father made for him. And then they took it back to his father, to their father, and said that they found that his robe, that they found it. So Jacob was so, he was so sad. He was so sorrowful because he thought that Joseph have died. So you will also see in 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 18 and 19. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 18 and 19. Let me see. Let me do this from King James. Genesis, 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 18 and 19. 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 18 and 19, it says, but Samuel ministered before Yah, being a child, girded with linen ephod. Moreover, his mother made him a little coat and brought it to him from year to year when she came up with her husband for the yearly sacrifice. Now, what I will suggest is you look this thing up in multiple translations. Look it up in multiple translations. These places that are quoted, and you see it was a robe. It's a robe. But that's that thing that I said about the Gentiles. Sometimes they water these things down because they don't understand it. They don't understand certain things in the Bible, so they just translate it like based on their own understanding, and that also ends up being a stumbling block for other people that are reading those things. Look at I'm reading this from New King James. Isaiah chapter 6. Isaiah chapter 6. In the year that King Uzziah died. Isaiah chapter 6 verse 1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw Yah sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Isaiah the prophet saw Yah sitting on a throne. And of course, you know how the prophet saw. They were, you know, he saw Yah, and Yah was, you know, his robe filled the temple. Yah was also wearing a robe, like Yeshua, like you see in the book of Revelation. It says that we'll be given a white robe. And those that was crying out and asking Yah when he's going to punish the world, and they were given a white robe and told to relax for a little bit for their brethren who hasn't been killed yet. So the Hebrew culture, the Hebrew style of dressing is different from what you see today. If you dress like a Hebrew man, you will most likely be mistaken as a Muslim. People mistaking me a lot as a Muslim. I was in a post office, and a guy at the post office, the guy that works there, he was like, Assalamu alaikum. And I kind of smiled. I think I smiled or whatever. I don't know what to tell him because I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Muslim. So, but people mistaking me as a Muslim when they see me. Once you have a beard and you wear a robe, people think it's a Muslim style of dressing, but it's biblical. It's what you see in the Bible. That's how Yeshua dressed. On a robe and a beard and sandals. You know, so all the prophets, they wore a beard, they wore a robe and sandals. So it's even the men of Israel today are no longer, most of them are no longer dressing like the Hebrew men you read about in the Bible. Should I mention about the women? Well, so you can understand why Jacob will not be able. I mean, if this girl walks into the room with a very tight jean and a very tight, top and nothing on her head, he will probably be able to tell that that wasn't Leah. And these women are so humble and respectful and shameful. They didn't talk much. They followed others a lot. If their father tells them to do something, they do it. So she's not gonna sit there on that bed running her mouth and stuff like that. She's gonna be so ashamed because she's about to do something that she has never done. So she's gonna be nervous. And again, I keep saying this, the Hebrew people that you read about in the Bible is so different in their attitude. So they are so respectful, so humble, and typically I hope you were able to see some of these things that I'm saying from the people that we're reading about. So when they're told to do something, they do it. So she's not gonna sit there and there was not going to be a lot of stuff that she would do that will indicate, because it's dark. This guy is excited. She's nervous. So, and he want to get down to business immediately. And once that business is done, it's done. That's why we have to be careful. Is there something else left on Exodus chapter 20? Because maybe next time we'll continue. So that's adultery for you. So when you look at the whole situation with Jacob, if you compare it with the world's definition of adultery today, think about that. That's not going to fly. And these are the reasons why the people will tell you that the law is done away with, because it contradicts their own modern day definition of things, modern day definition of marriage. So, but if you look in this situation, all these women, when Jacob married Rachel, the second one, that wasn't an adultery because she was a virgin. That wasn't an adultery. When they ended up introducing another woman to him and he ended up marrying that girl, their maid, that wasn't an adultery. When he married the third one, the fourth one, that wasn't an adultery. None of those was adultery. And these women, all of them ended up producing the 12th tribe of Israel. So that's why I was laughing in the beginning when I thought about the world's modern day right now definition of adultery and the Bible. It's like night and day. It's totally different. So yeah, that's we're gonna leave it at adultery. I think there are some other stuff that continues. It says, yeah, the next one will be, you shall not steal. That's very simple. Don't steal, period. Oh, but we're gonna get into this some other time, because you also see Yah telling his people to plunder a nation, When they go to war, they plunder that place. But we're going to get into that. So we're going to go into that. But we don't steal. No stealing. This is a commandment. So we've gone through this law. I hope that the Most High will give you, I think we probably had a lot of information today. So I'm going to stop so that you can be able to process all these things. And at the end of the day, it's really, like as I said, when you look at all these things, you're going to have to choose whether we're talking about marriage, betrothing, arranging marriage, whatever that thing is, dressing. I was talking about the Hebrew men. The Hebrew women, the dressing of today, it's different from the way you see in the Bible. Way different. Way different. And people like to focus on Deuteronomy chapter 22 verse 5 that talks about pants. There's a lot more to it. I'm not going to get into it right now. There's a lot more to it. You may not wear pants. You may wear a dress. But there's a lot more to it. Like as I said, if you wear something that your body is something tight, I've seen women that wear a dress, but I pretty much look at them, I see all their nakedness. There's pretty much nothing else left. So somebody may not wear a pant, but that doesn't mean that they are dressing moderately. You know, so the Hebrew women of today are no longer dressing like the Hebrew women you saw in the Bible. They don't do that anymore. They don't do that. They dress like the women of the Gentiles. And somebody is going to have to, both us men and women, all of us, somebody is going to have to somebody is going to have to surrender here. Somebody is going to have to yield. Yah have told us what to do. So we can't, there's not going to be another way. So we can't do it our own way. It's not going to work. You've seen over and over and over and over and over in history. If you want to know that Yah exists, go to Google. Go to your Google and type in ancient Babylon. And go to the images. You're going to see a bunch of pictures of the actual ancient Babylon. Right now, it's around Iraq. It's empty. You're going to see palm trees. And you're going to see the ruins that shows you that there used to be houses over there. That land has been empty. Just like the Most High said that it was going to be empty. If you read Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51. Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51, when Jeremiah was writing that place, actually it was Baruch that wrote it. Baruch was the scribe, Jeremiah's scribe. Because some of these prophets, usually they would choose a scribe. A scribe is somebody that writes. Like Paul. Paul was not actually the one that wrote those books that you see. Paul had a scribe that writes for him. And you can see that in Romans, almost towards the end of Romans. He identifies himself of who he is. He's the one that writes for Paul. So they did have scribes, and Jeremiah had a scribe, a man called Baruch. He wrote for Jeremiah. You will see that in the book of Jeremiah at the end. So he was the one that Jeremiah sent to take that order. So Yah will tell him something, and his scribes will write for him. Will write those things down. Same thing with Second Ezra. Second Ezra. The book of Second Ezra wasn't written by Ezra. Actually, Yah gave him the prophecy, but then he has professionals who are known as the scribes. Like you may hear about the scribes and the Pharisees. These are professional writers. That's all they do. They write. They are professional writers. These are people that wrote some of the things you see in the Bible. They are experts. Yah told the people to choose them. So in the case of Second Ezra, Yah told him to choose those experts, those scribes, and Yah told him to go into the wilderness. He took those men and they went in there and they stayed there for a long time, for about 40 days or something. They just kept writing. They just kept writing. Yah was telling him, and he was, So basically, in Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51, Yah was speaking against Babylon, that he's going to destroy it, and that nobody will dwell there again. Even till this very moment, that land is empty. It's very close to Iraq. Nobody lives there. It's exactly the way Yah says it was going to be. Where are the Babylonians? They are gone. Exactly what Yah said. So it's and then in the 90s, Saddam Hussein decided, he thought about rebuilding Babylon. Saddam Hussein, the one that the Americans killed, he thought about rebuilding Babylon. But he thought about rebuilding Babylon. And what happened to Martin Luther King happened to him. What happened to Malcolm X? What happened to all these men that tried to go against the word of Yah? Yeah, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, these men was trying to go against the word of Yah. I know this is kind of the first time you're hearing stuff like this. So Saddam Hussein, from the report that I got, he thought about rebuilding Babylon, like pouring in money and rebuilding the whole thing so people can move in and start living there again. Well, the problem with that is that the Most High God have already said, as you can see in Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51, that the land of Babylon was going to remain empty. Wild animals will live there, and nobody will live there ever again. That's why I say go to Google, type in ancient Babylon, and then click on images and see. It's empty. People do go past there. People took those pictures, but nobody lives there. So when this man thought about rebuilding Babylon, that's going against the word of Yah, and the Most High will kill you. He's going to send somebody to slaughter you, to shoot you in the head or shoot you in the back of the head and kill you or stab you. That's what he does. So when he decided, when he was thinking about rebuilding Babylon, that's a big problem, because that was going to go against Jeremiah chapter 50 and 51. If he was able to pour those oil money, that Iraqi oil money, into developing or rebuilding Babylon and building hotels and mansions and apartments, then the word of Yah was going to be void, and that cannot happen. So that's why all of a sudden one day, some guy in Texas by the name of George Bush decided that it was time to go into Iraq. And before you know it, Saddam Hussein was gone. And that man from Iraq also told you that God told him to do it. And people were, oh, he's crazy. George Bush. People thought he was crazy. So this is when you begin to learn about the true God, the true actual God. When you begin to learn about him, it's scary, and you have to be very careful, because God may kill you. He will kill you if you don't get your acts together. The true Most High God is different from the one we learned in Christianity. And anybody who dares to go rebuild Babylon will be killed. Somebody somewhere is going to rise up and just, for whatever reason, go kill that person that wants to rebuild it. That land will remain empty forever, just like Yah said. And you can see the pictures right now from your phone. John chapter 4 verse 24 says that Yah is a spirit. Those that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Think of what happens, like right now, somebody is here and then all of a sudden they fall, and the next thing you hear is that they're dead. You go there, you're looking at their body, but they're not moving. And leave that body there long enough, it begins to smell. What happened? What happened to this? I was watching this police pursuit the other day. And these people was like driving, running away from the police. And he was driving, and all of a sudden, he drove into somewhere and was stuck. And he turned around and tried to like maneuver and drove past the police. And of course, you know, these Gentiles are bloodthirst. These people are blood. They can't wait to shed blood. They cannot wait to shed blood. And to make matters even worse, they get rewarded when they do shed blood. They literally get rewarded to kill. And these other so-called officers sees that. Their fellow officer will shoot someone. He gets put on quote-unquote leave of absence or whatever. Paid leave. While they quote-unquote investigate. So he goes, what the hell do you think he was going to be doing when he's still getting paid? But he's on leave. He's going to like figure out what to do. Maybe go golfing or go fishing or something while they so quote unquote investigate. He already knows that he's not going to jail. All he has to say is that he feared for his life. The case closed. They know this. They see this. So these animals that you see that drive around these so-called police cars, these are wild animals with guns and badges. They're bloodthirst. They thirst for blood. So of course, I guess this guy did not realize that. And he begins to drive. He wasn't actually like, he was trying to like maneuver and drove past them and keep running. And they opened fire. And then the car stopped. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because the passenger in that car ended up like crawling out the window. The driver was killed by those bullets from the police. So, but the reason why I'm telling you this is because, like, at one moment, this guy is driving a car, talking, freaking out. The next moment, he's dead. And I was thinking to myself what his passenger was going to be thinking. Like, all of a sudden, you're talking to your buddy. You guys are talking and figuring out how to get away from the police. All of a sudden, your buddy is dead. So the point I'm trying to make is that, again, this is one of the stuff we've been taught from the Gentiles, which is that the Bible is nothing, you know, it was made up. A lot of people will tell you that, oh, it's a white man's book. It was made up. It was written by drunk people. So these are stuff that some of the stuff mentality that we have today, which we need to get rid of. So what happens when people die? All of a sudden somebody is here and then all of a sudden they're gone. What happened? That's because the spirit have left. Once that spirit leaves you, that's why we say body. We call that person a body, dead body. And then what do? We start figuring out a way to put that person on the ground. Why? Because the spirit is gone. There's a spirit in every single one of us. There's a spirit in every single one of us. And once that spirit is gone, that's it. Think of what happens to a woman. All of us, one time she's a little girl. At one point she's a little girl. And it's obviously guaranteed that there is nothing in her stomach. And then that little girl continues to grow. And then some man goes into her, and all of a sudden she's pregnant. And then she gives birth. And all of a sudden, this baby is popped out. And this baby is crying. And then now we have one more person. Where did that person come from? I'm trying to get you to understand. That's part of that psychological thing that we have to correct. Trying to get you to understand Yah is alive. Yah exists. And that baby will begin to cry and he becomes a human being. He becomes somebody. But when that spirit leaves them, they are gone. So when you look at the world and look around you, don't see it like the rest of the people. Don't think that the Most High is not there. The Most High is watching. He's a spirit. He's watching. That's why it tells you in John chapter 4:24 that Yah is the spirit, and all those that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The reason why Yah is not speaking right now is because this is the period of time that he told us. This is a period of time that he's not supposed to even speak. This is the times of the Gentiles. His people are supposed to be at the bottom. The Gentiles will be on top. So there's a period of time. If you watch that video about how to keep the Sabbath and keep your job, I gave a little bit of more information about this. There's a period of time. That's what Yeshua was talking about in Luke 21:24. How the stuff that was going to happen, and they will happen until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. We're still living in the times of the Gentiles. That's why they're ruling the world. So, within that period, Yah is just watching. And a lot of people have become foolish because Yah is not speaking. They're thinking, oh, well, if there's God, why isn't he talking? If there's God, why will he allow people to die in wars? Why will he allow children to die in wars? Why will he allow people to starve to death? Why will he allow this to happen? All glory to our Heavenly Father. I thank Yah for everything. Yeshua said in Matthew 24 that before he comes back, it will be as it was in the time of Noah. In the time of Noah, pretty much everybody was doing, almost everyone was doing the same thing. And those things that they were doing was not according to the will of Yah. And that was proven by Yah destroying them and saving those that was doing things according to his will. So, and there was a lot of unbelief at that time, because if they believed, then they would have believed Noah. All glory to our Heavenly Father. I thank you for everything. I thank you for your lives, my brothers and my sisters. I pray that Yah will give you the understanding and the ability to understand these things, and most importantly, to apply these things into your life. To apply it. It's not easy. We should do it. We should not have excuses. But I hope that everything that we just went through today, that, Yah will give you the strength and the protection and the ability to, to understand and to apply it into your life. I thank Yah for everything. I thank Yah for opening our eyes.